Baby Hey everybody, I made it. I just had to get some coffee And some water for myself, and obviously no lipstick. Yeah, my room's still kind of a mess, right? So I haven't unpacked everything. This is like my third stream in a row with no lipstick, and it feels weird. I hope you appreciate it. I know some people out there appreciate seeing what your streamer looks like without makeup. This is it. No makeup whatsoever, going on 3 days now. But yeah, we got some interesting stuff for you today. I've got a debate between Sam Seder and Lilo and Sitch and Adam. Yes, Sitch and Adam is the correct name. Although Lilo and Stitch does come up in this conversation, apparently Sam Seder has never seen it. He's never seen Lilo and Stitch, right? So the reference that they always get their name mixed up with is something that Sam is wholly unfamiliar. And I did a little research, or actually my mod team did a little research earlier today. It turns out that Lilo and Stitch came out in 2002, which, if you know about Sam's sort of like life history, I don't think he had his first kid until like the mid 2000s. So basically, Sam doesn't see movies like this unless his daughter or his son drag him to the movies. And you know, that just wasn't going to happen. You know, Milo was not yet born at this time. So let's see. Let's check the local forecast. What is this stream going to be like? What are you feeling like, chat? Are you ready for this? Are you ready to go? I don't really have as much, you know, just to like intro this time. And that's mainly because we've basically got one topic, maybe two. Here's the deal. Like, as always, you know, under 100 is kind of a scary low number of subs to be dealing with. Don't anybody think that I'm putting that on you, because like obviously you all have your own economic struggles to deal with, and I'm definitely not directing this at anyone who's like having trouble making ends meet. But yeah, I do need to be, you know, in general carrying more subs than this. If we can get me to 100 subs, which, you know, still not much, but it's like there's a psychological barrier when you go from 2 digits to 3 digits. If you can add that extra digit, I will add an extra piece of content, and I think you're gonna like it, right? I think you're gonna like it. It's a really interesting person that lives in a way that I bet you don't know anybody who lives like this, right? I bet you don't know anyone who lives like this dude. But we'll watch him, we'll see what he's up to, we'll see what he's all about. If I can get that sub goal, you know, up into the 3 digits, right? Just make me feel a little bit safer about being able to dedicate so much time and effort to streaming. So yeah, we got Sam Seder in the meantime, facing off against Sitch and Adam. Sitch is the one on the left with the Ransona. Adam is the one who's a person, a human, you know, like a moving person over here on the right, and obviously Sam's on top. We'll see if he comes out on top of this debate. My understanding is that this debate came about after Sitch and Adam watched a segment of the Majority Report, which we might go over in a second, right? It's a segment about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you know, an event that happened there, right? An event that if I were to give you the normal name of this event, YouTube would be upset with me. Do I really not have a coffee cup? I don't. I thought I had a coffee cup. That's not good. I might have to go and grab that as soon as we get started here. But yeah, this is you know, Black Wall Street essentially, and what happened to it, right? When some white people in Tulsa just didn't think that, you know, black people deserved what they had, and it's a really sad historical event. So the subject came up over the kind of thing that Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida in terms of making rules against certain types of teaching. And you know, the debate that we're gonna go over is basically like, what exactly are the lines? Like, what is Ron DeSantis and and his anti-woke agenda disallowing, because it seems like Sam, Seder, and Sitch and Adam have a different idea about what is allowed and what is not allowed, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Anyway, let's get going. Let's get into it.
Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with another Tuesday show with everyone's favorite MMT advocate, Adam Friend.
How dare you? Why you gotta get the chat mad at me from the get-go, Sitch? That's so unfair.
Because you and Sam were bonding.
So yeah, MMT, modern monetary theory. It's essentially an understanding of how money works when it comes to an economy as large as the United States, the kind of spending that the US government does, and pretty much refutes the whole idea of, like, you know, you'll always hear the Republicans say, what about the deficit? What about the debt? You know, like, if we owe all this money to China, eventually China's going to come over and be like, we own you now, and there's nothing we can do, right? That's not really how things work. And incurring some level of debt is actually good for a country, right? So modern monetary theory kind of helps to understand that. Apparently, Adam Friended is an advocate of this, right? And that lets you know a little bit about Sitch and Adam in terms of what flavor of chud do we have here. Yeah, they're definitely right-wingers, right? But we're talking about more along the lines of the intellectual dark web rather than some kind of a libertarian or libertarians would not advocate modern monetary theory or like a MAGA. So, you know, just so you're understanding, like, there's just like Pokemon, you got to catch them all. If you really want to understand the right wing, you got to understand all the different varieties of right wingers that can exist. And, you know, this is one of them. And Adam Friended, apparently the chat's not a big fan of Adam's position on MMT, and it sounds like neither is Sitch. So
Over your love of MMT before the stream started.
You don't look.
yeah, like, Timcast time. I mean, they would definitely be guests on the Timcast.
That was secret. That was supposed to be between me and Sam. Okay.
I mean, you'll find like all kinds of chuds on the Timcast.
Sam has actually interviewed Stephanie Kelton. I think you said 5 or 6 times. So that's props to you.
I think, yeah.
What is going on in the background of Sitch's background?
At least. And I also just looked up Lilo and.
Is this some Vita Carnis stuff? Do you see that? Here, I just looked up. Wait.
Which came out in 2002. I didn't see it, and frankly, I have never, I don't think ever heard of it until you just said.
Have you heard of it? Have you never heard of Lilo and Stitch?
I mean, it is. This is not something.
So they get that a lot. In fact, I've jokingly mixed up their names with Lilo and Stitch, but I don't know what that has to do with Sam, since he obviously hasn't seen it.
Thing I have done on purpose, but I'm reminded on a daily basis by people who I work with that I have no awareness of anything that's happened in culture for decades. So that is not by design. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Sam,
my kids, I don't know.
We probably should have checked this before we began, but do you have a mic there? Or are you on is that your computer audio coming through?
I think it is my built-in microphone. Should I try?
Well, no, if that's all you have, the audio seems fine, but I didn't know. Sometimes people have a better mic and they just.
You know, I think I.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
When you talked for like 5 minutes beforehand, why didn't we do any of this?
Yeah, I thought if there was to be a problem, you would have said.
Do you see the background that I'm talking about? Like it's like some kind of. It looks like a game background or something, but there's these giant eyeballs that remind me either of like entities from the Backrooms or like Vita Carnis or something, like some kind of analog horror thing going on behind Sitch. Can anybody identify that for me?
There was a problem. Adam.
Well, no, it's good. It's good. Don't worry about it.
I'm not the first guest you've had on, am I?
No.
I'm joking.
No, never.
I know. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I know. You know what? My headphone microphones are not showing up. I had a microphone, but I had a feeling my kid stole it.
No, it's okay. Sounds
Don't
fine.
worry about it. I just want to say, before we start,
You can see me in the mirror behind me on the right side of the screen. Is anything weird happening there?
I want to tell our audience, we're only talking to Sam for like an hour.
I gotta
or a little
know.
more, so if you send in any questions that you want us to ask Sam, there's a good chance we won't get to them. So I'm just letting you guys know.
Sorry about that, folks.
Don't worry about it.
You can see my arm.
Okay, so what I want to talk about today
can see my sports bra.
You did give me permission to go hard on you. Just want everyone.
Yeah, I think
yes. No,
I think we're
sure,
okay. I don't think there's anything weird.
So I'm gonna need a little
Yo,
bit.
listen. If I was Germa though, like, right, I have to be really careful that there's no bottle of lotion showing, right? Has anybody heard of this whole thing about, like, apparently Germa's chat, if they see anything in his background, they start to speculate about what's that doing there. And you can imagine when they see a bottle of lotion hanging around the shot, what they think Germa's doing with that bottle of lotion.
Bit of a setup here to give context to what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about, which, you know, could be a little
Well, I mean,
contentious,
I'm sure there's part of chat that wants to see my back, so, you know, I'm here for that.
is that
Apparently.
I want to talk about spreading misinformation. And as a content creator,
See a little bit of
me
my
and Adam,
back.
we do feel strongly about spreading misinformation, and we try our best to not do that. And a lot of our show
So yeah, Sitch and Adam always on that beat of stopping people from spreading misinformation, right?
revolves around going over and critiquing what we perceive to be as misinformation. And I do feel like some of the stories that you've covered about these anti-CRT bills, you've got some key elements of them incorrect.
Okay.
And the one I want to talk about, or one of the ones I want to talk about, was
Okay, so yeah, this is the annoying part of this conversation is that we get to bring up, and you'll hear this later, what is CRT? And I don't think these two know, right? These are supposed to be IDW types. These are supposed to be big brain, you know, IDWs. They're not MAGA chuds. They're not, you know, like, right? They want to hold themselves apart, right? They don't want you to confuse them with some dude in a Trump hat that's like, I like President Trump. He could do whatever he wants. He could walk all over me and I would still vote for him. In fact, I would probably vote for him even more. I want him to walk over. Yeah, right? They're not those dudes, right? They're smart, right? But I still don't think they know what CRT is, right? And this is pretty common with right-wingers in general, right? What they bring up as being CRT is actually a little bit ridiculous.
recently did a video called Republicans Say
But unfortunately, we don't get to have a fully fleshed out debate on that, so...
1921 Tulsa Race Massacre lessons shouldn't discuss racism. And in the video, we see someone
Sitch's cam looks like the title screen for I'm on Observation Duty 5.
asked the school superintendent,
Wait, is that an
Oklahoma,
actual game?
how schools could teach something like the Tulsa Race Massacre without running afoul the anti-CRT bill. And and instead of you guys, you don't show the full answer or the full interaction that the superintendent gives. You played only the second half of his answer, kind of out of context.
Okay, so a school superintendent in Oklahoma, and Sam watches something that he said, and they're upset because there's more that he said. And maybe...
And then using that out of context clip, you and
out of context clip, it's a clip. He said the thing,
your
right?
co-host jump to what I would
Like, look, an out of context clip, a real out of context clip is if I said, like, and then Tim Pool said, and I said something racist, right? And then you cut off the part where I'm saying the racist thing, and you don't see that I said Tim Pool said, right? That's what out of context is, right? When the clip undermines the meaning of what I was saying. Obviously, if I'm quoting Tim Pool saying something racist, that doesn't mean that I agree with the racist thing that Tim Pool said. I'm pointing out Tim Pool's a racist, right? That's like that's what an out of context clip is. This is like he added on to what he was saying, and I don't know, they think that makes it better somehow, but really what it does is like, okay, he's contradictory, right? So which clip do we go with? The one that says A or the one that says B, right? If you've dealt with conservatives for any amount of time, you know that they're contradictory, right? They don't even notice when they're contradictory, and if you call them on it, they'll say, that's not a contradiction, what are you talking about, right? So, I mean, it's
categorized as unfair conclusions about this guy's position, about the positions of
I don't care about out of context, like me personally, Jello.
the government of Oklahoma. Because in the first part of the guy's answer, the superintendent, he says that Oklahoma should 100% teach the Tulsa Race Massacre. He says that the only way for American children to continue to make America the best country in the world is to learn from the mistakes of the past, that children should have a very clear, direct understanding of these events. He specifically says he doesn't want to hide any part of U.S. history. But that answer wasn't played.
Wait, that's a horror game. I'm on Observation Duty 5. Okay.
On your guy's show. And he only played the second part of his answer where he said...
So apparently that's what's in Sitch's background. I was wondering. Yeah, it looks like some analog horror or something.
He would never tell a kid that they are inherently racist because of the kid's skin color. And he continues to say that you can teach about these historical.
We've all been to school, right? Like, I know not all of you are Americans, but of those of you who went to school in the United States of America, one in chat, if you never heard any teacher say, you are racist because of the color of your skin, right? Because I never heard that. That I was never like, right? This is a right-winger's idea that in a social studies class, that the first thing they say is like, all right, now all of you who are white, you're bad. You're horrible. How do you live with yourself? How do you sleep at night? Being white in 2023? What's wrong, right? That literally does not happen. Wait, so what you did here, McSecular, you have had somebody tell you that you were racist because of the... I don't think this really happens, right? I think it's stuff that they interpret. It's stuff that they are, kind of translating, right? It's like, essentially, if you want to teach history, you're going to be teaching about racism, and that racism runs along a power differential with white people that are, part of whiteness or tangential to whiteness being at the, at the upper end of that, and people that aren't being at the lower end of that, and getting the, the brunt of that, the force of racism, right? So you're left with a situation where either you don't teach history, which it kind of sounds like where Ron DeSantis and a lot of the anti-CRT people are going, or you're gonna have to you're gonna have to deal with the fact that you can't. Some of the history doesn't feel comfortable, right? And at some point in education, you've got to deal with white guilt. Now, what do I mean by white guilt, right? White guilt is when white people, in an attempt to kind of overcompensate for that perception, kind of center ourselves in the discussion. And, sometimes it's emotional or something like that. And it just makes everybody uncomfortable. And that's not great either, right? But at the same time, obliviousness to, a fundamental reality of history that's kind of shaped the way things are now is like, I mean, are you going to teach the kids or not, right? Are they going to learn things, or are you going to hide things from them, right? I went to school years ago, so I never experienced it. Why are you not playing the video for me when I press the button?
Incidences, as long as you don't blame the behavior on immutable characteristics.
Oh wait, me, Sitch, and Adam, everyone will take, but you don't mean like me personally. This isn't like a no comment chick is she's bad and she takes people out of context, and she's just always watching Vosh, and she's like, haha, let me clip Jim Vosh. Oh look, I'll make him say something ridiculous, right? It's not like that, right? What is the Sitch? The Sitch is this PSA Sitch guy over here on the left with the analog horror images behind him. The Ransona, right? That's Sitch. The other one is Adam Friended. And these are two right-wing creators, although I made a point to tell you, they're not your average MAGA chuds, right? They're not hogs per se. They're more like the intellectual dark web kind of right-wingers, as Adam brought up MMT and alluded to the fact that he agrees with the concept of modern monetary theory, which is not something that you get from a red hat wearing MAGA chud. It's not something you'd get from a libertarian, so it kind of identifies him as being that part of the right rather than others.
And from
NCC bad. I mean, that's what I've heard. Jello, have you heard how bad I am? Like, why are you even like, do you even know? Listen, I got a bit of a reputation, okay? If you talk to the right debate bros, you'll hear about how bad I truly am. I was making a Kim Possible joke. Wait, what was the Kim Possible joke? Oh, I completely went over my head. Literally, someone called Sitch. Ooh, okay, maybe that's where PSA Sitch got his name from. I don't even know. What a timeline we live in, indeed. Wait a minute, did Sam already debate them? Yeah, this happened 6 days ago. I'm a little late to this, huh? I know Sam will agree to almost any debate, but he rarely debates YouTubers and streamers. Yeah, they called him out on a particular take he had about there was an Oklahoma official who was talking about, oh my god, we got an ad break already. I was supposed to warn you, but now it's too late. NCC is a complicated historical figure. She was known as the infamous filing cabinet saleswoman in MAGA America. That is true. That is true. I can't deny that. In the show, they go, what's the Sitch? Oh, what's the Sitch? That's like, what is the situation? Oh my god. See, that could literally be where Sitch got his name. I don't know, though. I can't tell you for sure.
Clip. You accused him of denying the existence of white supremacy.
But I'm going to have to use that. What's the Sitch?
KKK, the racial motivations behind the Tulsa Race Massacre. You refer to him in the state of Oklahoma as propagating lost causism, which is the idea of casting slave owners as benevolent, downplaying the horrors of slavery, and saying the Civil War wasn't about slavery. You compared his...
Lost causism, as far as I know, is the romanticization of the antebellum South, the Confederacy. It's yeah, I mean, I guess there's some of the stuff that he said that kind of touches on what it is. Part of it is like, yeah, making a big deal over states' rights, seeing that as being separate for support of slavery, you know, like kind of hypothesizing for some kind of cause that is noble, that the South had a reason to feel bad for them for having gotten their asses royally destroyed in the Civil War, for you know, Sherman's march to the sea, right? For flocking around and finding out, as it were, right? There are, you know, like obviously this is appealing to Southerners, and you know, like you can see it in like Birth of a Nation is what, when I think about The Lost Cause, I think of that horrible racist movie that I am not recommending that you see, you know, because if you watch it, right, you're going to see the most racist movie that you could imagine. You know, you probably can't imagine it until you see Birth of a Nation. You can't imagine how racist a movie really can be. That movie does it. That movie is incredibly racist, right? But part of what it does is it romanticizes the idea of like, oh God, you know, the South, they were so close to winning. Like if they had just gotten the message to this one general in time, things would have been totally different. And like, you know, if you think that like, oh yeah, God, you know, like if you feel sorry for the South, if you feel like, oh God, they almost made it, they tried so hard, you know, then like, I mean, you got to ask that person, like, well, so like, how do you feel about slavery? You know, like, is that cool too? Is that is that something that you want to preserve? Yeah, Gone with the Wind, Shakespeare is pointing out, is another Lost Cause movie. So what I said before was that, you know, the South romanticized its situation, its history, its supposed almost winning of the Civil War, and then that romanticization spread to the North, and that's why you have a movie, a racist movie like the Birth of a Nation, right, as a way for the white people in the North to kind of romanticize that too, and like really what it represents is that people whose ancestors one generation removed, their ancestors died in the Civil War, okay? Are now like, oh God, but those Southerners, they really were fighting hard for their cause. They really did love their state and their you know, home, and oh geez, you know, it's too bad it had to be like that, right? Like, so when you got white people that have more sympathy for the traitorous army of the South, that maybe unalived their grandparent or their parent, right? Then for black people, I mean, that's racism. I don't know what else to call that but racism. Yeah, I'm not convinced that they understand the Lost Cause and what the role that plays in American history. Also, at this time, the Center of Film and Television, yeah, a lot more people have heard of Gone with the Wind, so you know, you can think of that as another movie. These were the two biggest blockbusters, like right off the gate for the movie industry, right? These were big movies. They were shown at the White House. They were so big, and you know, they're both incredibly racist. So, what does that tell you about early 20th century U.S.? This time, the Center of Film and Television was in New York at this time when Birth of a Nation was made too. Oh, okay, so Shakespeare's bring out the point that we think of film and television as being something that gets made in Hollywood in Southern California, right? That industry was just not there at the time. This is New York where all this stuff was made.
Statement and the anti-CRT bill to being similar to the conditions that caused the Tulsa Race Massacre in the first place.
You thought Sam debated Adam and Sitch years ago? That it may have happened, but this was 6 days ago.
You referred to this anti-CRT legislation as upholding the Confederacy. You said he and the state were trying to remove the fact that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by race and racism, and you all agreed to call him a white supremacist. So I guess what I'm confused...
Look, if your priority is making sure that white kids feel comfortable in history class, like over actually teaching history, you know what I mean? Is making sure that white kids don't internalize any sort of guilt in the understanding of history, we got a problem. If that's your priority, right?
About is how from his answer you derive...
May the falafel ever be with you. Yo, I can't buy falafel right now, but thank you, Adadak. That's a nice thought. Falafel is delicious, but it's a little too rich for my blood right now, especially given that I'm a under 100 sub streamer at this point.
All these conclusions.
Obviously, I don't have all the I don't even necessarily recall the video, but I'll stipulate everything you've said. Would you just repeat to me the last thing he said about immutable characteristics?
I can read you his direct thing if you want me to.
Yeah, just repeat what you had just told me in that setup.
Okay, well, what I told you was that he said, the way I described it was, he said you can teach about historical incidences as long as you don't blame the behavior on immutable characteristics.
Okay, so what do you think he's talking about when he says blame the behavior of the Tulsa massacre?
He's saying...
So there's two ways that you can take this, right? Immutable characteristics. I mean, I get the feeling that this dude and maybe even the zeitgeist, around education in Oklahoma in general, like, looks at the instruction of history, which, like I said, like, I don't think that the kind of stuff that they're saying, like the real heavy, laying of the guilt of history at the feet of like white children, I don't think that really goes on. I think that's an exaggeration. I think that is a reaction to feeling uncomfortable, as one should, hearing about the history of the country and having that cognitive dissonance between like America is the great land of opportunity and freedom and tolerance and all this stuff, and then like, yeah, you're like, oh yeah, look at what happened in Tulsa in the early 1900s, right? It doesn't exactly jibe. But for them, what they're claiming is that they are outlawing a type of instruction in school, which they're characterizing as saying that racism is an immutable characteristic of white people, right? That's pretty doomer pilled, okay? Now, I will be the first to tell you that, the struggle against racism, which realistically speaking is the struggle against whiteness as like a cultural concept, right? A struggle to dislodge this kind of unconscious set of beliefs that comes with whiteness, right? With a social construction which defines itself by that which is not. Like, it's literally defined by, like, this person is not white, this person is not white, this person is not white, and it's changed over the years, and right? It's a difficult thing to deconstruct. It's a multi-generational project, right? But to say that it is... What was his exact words? Here, let me rewind that, because I just, like, the words are important. The words are really important here.
I can read you his direct thing if you want me to.
Yeah, just repeat what you had just told me in that setup.
Okay, well, what I told you was that he said, the way I described it was, he said you can teach about historical incidences as long as you don't blame the behavior on immutable characteristics.
Immutable characteristics, okay? So I don't think it's immutable, because if it was immutable, then there'd be like, it's like that's like giving up, right? Obviously, the intention of teaching this history and taking unconscious concepts like whiteness and making them conscious, pointing them out, saying this is what's going on, like, this is the elephant in the room. That's got to have a goal, and that goal is to unwind, over, like I said, generations, unwind that racism, unwind what's really like, kind of a white supremacist mentality that is unconsciously, taught as a result of the history of, how it was used in the past, right? So yeah, immutable. No, I don't think so. But like here, you can see that Sam, Sam's not worried about literally like, that concept, right? Like the idea that like, like you're not allowed to, Sam doesn't want teachers to say, you got this racism, and if you're white, that's immutable. That's just part of, who you are. That's like, endemic to you being you, right? But at the same time, you can see how they would take a concept like what I just described with like whiteness as a social construct and white supremacy as an unconscious belief that people are indoctrinated into, and say, well, that's what we're talking about right there. That's what you're not allowed to teach. Because to them, do you see how malleable like that phrase is, and why Sam would be worried about a rule like that, like basically preventing the project, the multi-generational project, which is not easy, and of deconstructing like whiteness, white supremacist mentality in the culture at large, right? This is literally a law that is trying to put a halt on that, right? The intention of this law, and I don't think I'm going on a limb out here by saying this, the intention of this law is to keep what is implicit, what is unconscious, right? And that does not allow us to move forward as a society. My former boss read Gone with the Wind. She was told about the reason it was written. She was uncomfortably comfort with the that stuff, having grown up in in apartheid South Africa. In my experience, generally it is not the white kids that are so upset about learning. Oh yeah, I mean, it's the parents, the teachers, the like I think the parents like imagine their kids like being uncomfortable, and that's a sign that the parents are kind of uncomfortable, that they're feeling some kind of guilt, and that the way that they like I said, white guilt is like a reaction to this stuff, right? And it is cringe when it manifests as white person centering themselves and their guilt and their feelings in this concept that's really like, right, not about it's about the victims of racism, not about the perpetrators of racism. So that's cringe. But the other types of reactions to white guilt are even worse, right? And the type that we're talking about here is denial, right? That was a long time ago. I have nothing to do with that. Right now in the United States, segregation is not the law of the land, Like there's no laws that say white person can do this, but black person can't do this, right? So therefore racism abolished. We don't have to think about it, right? It's all over. Martin Luther King got rid of all the racism, right? That we want to live in a colorblind society. That's denial, right? And that's actually a worse response to history than the kind of cringy white guilt that I just described.
Okay. So what do you think he's talking about?
Oh, yeah. Shakespeare is putting out stage 10 of genocide is actually the denial of the event, is the denial of the history, right?
Blame the behavior of the Tulsa massacre.
He's saying that what I interpreted what he was saying, because the question asked was, how does teaching the Tulsa race massacre?
I know that, but I'm saying like when he says,
I'm trying to answer the question.
Okay.
He's because
We need to watch the movies Denial.
The person says, how does teaching this incident not run afoul of the CRT or the anti-CRT legislation? And his answer is, that he's saying that he would never teach a child that the child is inherently racist because of their skin color.
No, but that's not what he said. What he said was, will you just read the quote?
He said, I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin or your gender or anything like that, that you are less of a person or inherently racist.
This guy literally thinks like that's reverse racism that he's describing. He literally thinks that like in teaching history, and in teaching the concept of implicit bias, that somehow what you're doing is actually being like racist against white people, right? That's, you know, that things have gone too far in the other, you know, I mean, we've heard this before. We've heard it from Bosch. We've heard it from right wingers. You know, it's an absurd and pernicious notion. I do.
That doesn't
the
mean
next one about
doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. You can absolutely do that. Historically, you should. This was right. This was wrong. They did.
Generally, white kids would be sad but glad to learn about the real USA history that was whitewashed in history. Hence, why boomers call millennials snowflakes, and Xers call Zoomers woke. Oh, really? Okay.
This for this reason. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory. You're saying that race defines a person. I reject that. So I would say to you,
yeah, V says, I haven't seen any examples of teachers going, you should feel bad for being white because white people did X, Y, Z. It only exists in the heads of racists.
You to be judgmental of the issue, of the action, of the content, of the character, of the individual, absolutely. But let's not tie it into his skin color and say the skin color determines that.
Okay. So the idea that the Oklahoma massacre was simply a function of some bad individuals, to me, is absurd. It is contrary to historical context. I mean, let's be clear. The Oklahoma massacre was not the only massacre that took place in the post-Reconstruction years. There were dozens. There were political coups. There were assassinations. They were white people taking out black political people and black wealth. And the idea that this was simply a function of individuals, but not a function of an ideology that came out of in the wake of the Civil War is just, I'm sorry, it's ludicrous. And just the idea that this is going to be, you cannot consider the question of race, which I guess is the immutable characteristic that he's referring to, right? That race plays no part in white supremacy is a total denialism. I mean, and look, let me be clear. Like, I think white supremacy is a practice that we all largely in this society engage in, including black people. And because it's something that has been so ingrained into the society, into the fabric of our society, that it is.
Okay, so let me let you know what I'm thinking right now. I'm a little bit worried for Sam, right? He is on unfriendly terrain here. He's on enemy terrain. He's talking about stuff that likely Sitch and Adam's audience lack the basic competency to understand, because it's just like, it's not really talked about, right? And things like what he just said, right, about the fact that like white supremacy is a concept that gets indoctrinated into people and not just white people, right? Take that out of context and imagine how that's going to sound. Imagine how that's going to be used. So what I'm worried about now is the kind of clips that are going to be made out of that. We talked earlier about taking people out of context, right? That is something that could very easily be taken out of context. And you know, you gotta ask yourself, why did Sitch and Adam bring Sam Seder on to have this conversation? Are they really concerned about the spread of misinformation, and they just want to have an honest conversation in good faith and find out where Sam's really coming from? Or are they doing this because Sam is hated by a certain part of the right wing? And you know, there might be some anti-Semitic memes tied up in Sam's like anti-fans, right? Also, people forget that after the Civil War, Jim Crow was applied to Mexicans too, which adds to this. Like, I would add so much to this discussion since LA is still segregated by highways, still segregated by the LA River, etc. I haven't seen any clips of this. I forgot it happened. Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd have to. Yeah, I haven't seen any clips either, but I'm just worried because I know that he's in unfriendly terrain, and you know, clipping is one of the things that they do. You know, mischaracterizing what you're saying is one of the things that they do, right? I mean, remember what happened with Emma? You remember what Tim Pool and his audience like tried to do to Emma?
It's almost like it's almost in many respects it's involuntary. There are, to be sure, there's a lot of white supremacy that is much more voluntary and much more you're aware of for some people. But broadly,
I think I was so young when I learned about slavery that developmentally I probably couldn't have had a white guilt even if someone had tried to suggest slavery was my fault. I think I was probably 9 years old, barely understood history as a concept. Again, the white guilt is all something that, yeah, it's mostly coming from the parents.
Speaking, we make choices every day that are a function of white supremacy, that are...
Have Sitch and Adam taken anybody out of context? I actually do not follow their channel well enough to know that.
That are a function of white supremacy. The idea that the Oklahoma race massacres was not a function of the whiteness and the black.
Can y'all hear this okay? I can turn up the volume. Just so you know, I think that what's going on here is that Sam's actually, his audio is picking up on his webcam rather than his microphone. And so he's a little quieter and I don't know. Do I need to turn this up? White guilt is something that is only shows how systemic white supremacy is.
Of the people involved. I'm sorry, it's just, in my mind, it's complete denialism. Now, I don't know, I don't know, remember the exact context of the guy. I don't remember the guy whatsoever. And but that view...
You can hear Sam okay?
In my mind, is both a white supremacist view, which, again, I believe that white supremacy is something that we can practice unconsciously.
Right.
And I believe that subscribing to that view is certainly...
Yeah, no, I would go one step further and say that as long as it's unconscious, it's something that we will perpetuate, you know, in our daily lives, right? Like I've described, the metaphor that Vera, Ask Vera and I came up with a long time ago was Agent Smith, right? The way that in the Matrix, anybody that's in the Matrix, like Agent Smith can just like come out of you, right? At any time, and you're just sitting there, you know, eating a sandwich or something like that, and all of a sudden, like Neo's walking by, and then Agent Smith comes out, and you don't even realize what's happening, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about like sort of the unconscious, processes behind white supremacy, and even more than that, it's kind of tied into the whiteness, right? So whether you think of yourself as racist or not, this stuff is operating. Think of it as like operating in the background of your OS, right?
What ultimately leads to more egregious acts of racism. And it also is, I think it is completely consistent with the impetus behind the Lost Cause. I think, frankly, the whole assault on CRT is also denial of systemic racism. I mean, it is also, I think, like a fictionalized version of what CRT in fact is. And I would also say that, like, the goal of these laws is, in my mind, twofold. It is one.
Somebody needs to make a short video on what actual CRT, critical race theory, is and what it isn't, right? Because that'd be like an excellent resource to go to whenever anything like this comes up.
One, to make it so that people who would teach about questions of race to self-censor themselves, because these things are written in such a vague manner. And
only white people try to blame other racialized people for slavery.
And, particularly in the case of like Florida, where you have empowered people, and I think the Oklahoma law is modeled after this.
Yeah, racism is like bloatware or adware that you get pre-installed by your parents and society, kind of. Yeah, and so while I say I don't think it's like I don't think it's what did they say, endemic, or did they say God, there was some other word that they used there, right? Like I don't think it's like, it's not in your DNA, or it's not in your, it's not like biologically there, but it is present within it is in fact ubiquitous within culture and society, and so you end up with it regardless, and you can have it operating. It's a safer way to have it. It's going to be operating in the background regardless, right? But if you're aware that it's there, maybe you can do something about it. Maybe you can be conscious about it. Maybe you can, you know what I mean? Maybe you can take some precautions, or just, it's more dangerous the more unconscious it is, right?
To empower people to sue
immutable. Yeah. I don't like the word immutable, but it is, it is ubiquitous, if that makes sense.
Going to err on the side of not bumping up against that law because it's so costly for them. And it's cheaper for them to avoid anything that is even remotely close to that. I mean, it's the same thing with abortion.
But not as cheap, potentially, as getting out of the top of the hour ad break, which we're approaching now. We are approaching the top of the hour ad break. And let me let you know a little bit about how cheap it can possibly be. If you've got Amazon Prime, you've basically got a free sub. All you have to do is hook it up to Twitch, integrate it into Twitch, and it'll give you a free sub that you can use on any streamer that you want to use it on. If you use it on me, you'll get out of that top of the hour ad break. So that's how cheap it can be. It can also be, if you pay for it outright, $5 on desktop or $6 on mobile, which may or may not be cheap for you depending on what your finances look like. And again, I wouldn't encourage anybody that whose finances are tight to spend money that you don't have, right? Because there is a third way to possibly get out of the top of the hour ad break, and that is by a gift sub. You're going to be more likely to get one of those if you're more active in chat, right? It's not a sure thing. It's a roll of the dice, but it's definitely a way to go if you don't have the other options available to you.
Abortion bans. That's why you have doctors saying, like, I'm not going to perform an abortion on an ectopic pregnancy because I'm not going to lose my license and go to jail. And so that type of ambiguity around the law is
10 out of 10. Wow.
It's not a bug, but rather a feature of that law. And then I would also say that on top of that being the purpose of the law.
Wait, I gotta rehear what Sam is saying.
I mean, it's the same thing with abortion bans. That's why you have doctors saying, like, I'm not going to perform an abortion on an ectopic pregnancy because I'm not going to lose my license. And
so Sam's talking about the vagueness of the language and how it allows for multiple interpretations, and how somebody that's subject to the law, in other words, a teacher, that, I don't know what the law prescribes as far as, could you lose your, ability to, could you lose your job? Could you lose your teaching license? Like, right? What would happen to you if you were found in violation? But when things are vague, generally it causes that sort of panopticon effect where you end up monitoring yourself and just trying to make sure that you don't go anywhere close to whatever is illegal. The example from Ron DeSantis's Florida, right, is the school libraries, which got rid of just a ton of books because they didn't know exactly what would violate the homophobic legislation passed by DeSantis. So they end up actually eliminating more stuff than is against the law, just because they don't even want to deal with that, right? Since it's written into the curriculum, it makes it so that you lose your license. Yeah. So in other words, there's this electric fence. You don't know exactly where the electric fence is placed, so you don't go anywhere near that electric fence, right? Just to make sure that it's not going to zap you
and go to jail. And so that type of ambiguity around the law is not a.
Is this going to be the first alt-right debate Sam gets shown as weak in because he understands alt-right YouTuber? He underestimates alt-right YouTubers and streamers. He rarely goes in on others' terrains, and the time he did, it was some Republican libertarian podcast. I feel like there was one other time that he kind of got ambushed. He kind of got surprised. He kind of looked weak, and that was against Jackson Hinkle, actually. And you know, I mean, like, I know Jackson Hinkle, as far as his takes, was somewhat of a moving target. Oh, thank you, Wonderboy. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, the Jackson Hinkle debate did not really go Sam's way, and I get the feeling that Sam didn't know anything about who Jackson Hinkle actually was. Jackson Hinkle was kind of debating at Sam from the left, and my understanding of Jackson Hinkle is he's a patsock. He's like a MAGA communist, right? He's like essentially it's a form of third positionism. There it is, the ad break. There it is.
Bug, but rather a feature of that law. And then I would also say that on top of that being the
so they're going to ban the Bible. They actually did, I think, in Utah, right? They wrote the law so vaguely that it ended up like there was stuff in the Bible that violated the law.
Purpose of the law, it is, and I think we're seeing this in Florida, which has been the pioneer in this stuff, that the next step is a beginning to proffer more.
Oh, you're talking about Hinkle?
I would say the racism denial.
I mean, for a long time, like Hinkle was like writing shotgun for Haas, for infrared Haas, right? He's
denial, like in the form of
all up in that Nazgul vortex.
The attempt to rewrite the curriculum to say that
now they're going to try to ban the Book of Mormon. Nice.
Provided personal benefits for the enslaved. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember the specifics of the video you're talking about, but largely based on his comments, regardless of what he's saying to mitigate that. I think that his
yo, you gotta love this chat. There's somebody named Trigger Warning in here. Trigger warning, you little snowflake. Are you gonna get triggered?
You know,
so I had to do my Reddit voice.
Understanding of both that law and of the Oklahoma massacre.
What do you think about my Reddit voice, chat?
Is completely consistent with white supremacy.
I think you misinterpret.
Oh,
what
you're
he was
right.
saying.
Yeah, the Bible has that story with Noah and his daughters. Yeah,
Because
I
he
think you
wasn't
misinterpret
saying-
what he's saying. We're having a disagreement about
Right. Well, I understand. Okay. Well, we'll see. Because I
think you're steel manning what he's saying to the point where you're not seeing how it might be interpreted legally in a wider sense than you know your steel man of what he's saying.
think. So my understanding of what he was
Oh, was it Lot and his daughters?
saying, he didn't say anything.
Wait, no, I thought didn't something weird happen with Noah? Was it just that he was unclothed? I'm being so careful not to say any of the no words, right? He was unclothed. Was that all it was? I thought, yeah, there was something wild happened with Noah. Yeah, he got really he got wasted after the Ark thing, and
That like you can't teach that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by racism or animosity towards black people. Because the first sentence he says
his
is,
sons just saw him naked in a
I
tent.
would never tell a kid that
Okay.
because of your race, because of the color of your skin, that you are less of a person or inherently racist. Now you can disagree with how he defines CRT, but in the anti-CRT bill, it says specifically that you can't teach that someone is inherently racist because of their skin color. And so he's saying that's the element that you shouldn't teach.
But if you're dealing with a chud judge, as you likely are, right? Because the judiciary is one of the anti-majoritarian functions of the U.S. government that the right wing uses to kind of, sink their claws into the country as it's demographically changing, as they're becoming less popular, less successful electorally, right? They still hold on to the judiciary because the judiciary is somewhat of a lagging indicator, right? So you get that chud judge in there, and he's going to see, any sort of meaningful teaching of history as being an implication that that white kids are bad because of being white, or you know what I mean? You gotta realize that you got the law as it's written, and then you got the law as it's interpreted, right? You got the law as like Sitch is trying to interpret it now to make it look like less pernicious, and you got the way that the law would be interpreted under that chud judge.
I'm not saying you can't teach that the people involved in the Tulsa Race Massacre were motivated by racism.
I mean, can you put up his full quote? Because I wasn't responding to that part, obviously. I was responding to the second half that you said something like that the events were not a function of some immutable characteristics.
He said, I would never tell the kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin or your gender or anything like that you were less of a person or inherently racist. That doesn't mean that you don't judge the actions of individuals. You can absolutely do that. Historically, you should. This was right, this was wrong, they did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent, this is where I see it's key. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory.
I will
Oh, I was just checking. Yeah, that's not my police siren. That's, I think it's either Adams or Sitch's.
I'll tell you that had those people who could
I love it, Ubafly. A chudge. Oh, wait. You know what I realized? I do need more mods in YouTube chat. I know, like, I'm putting you on the spot, but Ubafly, can I give you the wrench? Would you like to be a mod? One other thing about, like, if you're modding in YouTube chat, if you could, and the Majority Report does this with great success, right? This is a incredibly successful strategy for them. They always mention like how many likes that are on the video, and then they set goals. So if it's like there's 40 likes, they're like, can we get 45 likes by the end of the hour? Come on, and like kind of cheerlead it, right? So yeah, I do probably need to add some more YouTube mods.
committed the who flew the plane.
You would be honored. Oh my god, I would be honored if you would accept the. Yeah. Oh my god.
The wealthy neighborhood, the black wealthy neighborhood in Oklahoma. Had they been black, they would not have done that. I think we can all. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Sam, I don't look. I don't think either one of us are disputing that those people were racist as fuck, and that we should be able to teach that.
Yo, like, do you like? Where do you get that? Like, Sam thought that you were disputing that the perpetrators of the Tulsa massacre were racist, right? Yeah, like that, Shakespeare. Can we get to 100 likes in the next 10 minutes? That's ambitious. There we go. We're at 15 now. Yeah, let's make it 20. If you haven't liked the stream already, hit that button. It's one of the ways that YouTube lets you directly help me.
The thing is, though,
in fact, like the only one way, other than just watching my stuff.
If people are saying because those people were racist in the past that you are in fact racist, or that any particular race is inherently racist as some sort of like
20...
biological determinism, that's the problem.
Well, first off, I don't think CRT in any way whatsoever teaches that because people were racist in the
Isn't kicking the people out of the Garden of Eden kind of like not age appropriate? Well, I mean, they were naked. Yeah, I mean, unclothed. I'm sorry, don't.
The past, they are inherently.
Don't want to make you to my
now,
monetization
CRT
go away.
Doesn't even come remotely close to teaching anything like that.
Well, kind of does, but we can talk about something else.
But not really. No, actually, no.
That's what you meant when you said we're all engaged in white supremacy, because the idea is that since our society was set up,
that's actually not critical race theories either. Critical race theories is that there are institutions and functions of society that are set up that are a function of racism, in the sense that there's diminished. So, for example, it is statistically far more likely that your neighborhood, if you are black, will be 10 to 20 degrees hotter in the summer, in the peak of the.
Now, maybe somebody in chat knows more about this. Sam doesn't really go into detail about this, like, temperature difference, right? But yeah, what he was saying essentially is that racism is enmeshed in the institutions of daily life in a way where it doesn't have to be explicit. It doesn't have to be written down. In other words, you don't need to like write an order for the cops to say, hey, you know, I kind of want you to pull over more black people, right? By the very nature of that institution of police, right? By the way that it was formed, by the way that it's always run, by the people that are in it, and the people that they choose to be there, you know, like to hire on, right? That is, they're going to do that, right? So that's a great example of you know, what CRT is being aware of the institutional bias of institutions like, you know, the police is probably the best example I could find, right? And then taking that into account and like, look, CRT, we're talking about a course in law school, okay? That's where it's applicable. If you take critical race theory in law school, you're going to learn about some of the ways that racism is enacted, not in law, not because it's written down, not because that's the official, not because this is in the police manual, but it's just like the nature of the institution that it's going to be like this. And so if you're trying to undo that, the first step is to be conscious of that. That's what CRT is, right? And they have made it sound like, your kids aren't going to social studies class. They're going to critical race theory class. They're going to learn about critical race theory, right? These people don't even know what critical race theory is, but they're essentially using it as like a stalking horse. Is that what the name of it? I think it's called a stalking horse for any class that might actually go over the concept of racism, like the existence of racism historically, and how that sort of how that like manifests in the current day, right? So Lance's debate partner was Matt Bender. Wait, when was this? In what debate? Police, armed forces. Yeah. There we go. Monetary system, credit system. That's a big one. White people are allowed to live in nice neighborhoods. They have shade trees, aren't exposed to the elements. Okay, so essentially we're talking about like neighborhoods where people live, and not because there's like a law that says you have to live here and you can't live here or anything like that, but just the dispossession of certain people of the resources to be able to live there, and kind of the history of concepts like redlining.
Summer. Now, do you know why that is?
Well,
if you were black, there would be.
Oh, it was Bender and Lance. Interesting. Versus Adam and Sitch. I never saw that. I mean, like,
it would be significantly more likely that your neighborhood is actually hotter.
The question though is
and
that
the reason, and the reason is because there are less trees that are planted.
Okay, so he does explain it.
In urban areas. There are less trees planted in neighborhoods where there are black people.
Education's another example of an institution which enacts racism without having it codified in the policy, right? When you talk about the way that schools are funded according to neighborhoods and where people live, being a function of history, which includes redlining as well as dispossession and inability to the way that certain groups don't have the generational wealth of other groups to be able to move into neighborhoods like that, or if they do, might not be accepted, and there's no law that says like don't accept a person who looks like this, but it just kind of happens, right? It's just kind of
fact. And the reason why that is because there's less political power and less money in those neighborhoods. This is just a fact. And this is a measurable fact.
I think we should stick to the point that we want. Okay. Well, we should stick to the point of the bill, because I don't dispute any. I don't dispute anything that you're saying.
Stop. Okay, we could have a protracted conversation. Maybe we would in the future. I'd be interested to have this about what CRT is, because I've actually read way too much about CRT and read too much academic literature on CRT. But instead of debating that, the thing that I want to talk about with this is that
you have, right? It really doesn't show, Sitch.
You can disagree with Oklahoma or this guy's interpretation of how they define CRT. But that would be different than saying, well, they're claiming you can't teach that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by racists, which when I'm looking at his words, he's not saying that. And when I look at the law, it doesn't appear to say anything like that either.
I mean, in the words that you just said to me, that this actions was not a function of an immutable characteristic, that to me says these people did not attack that neighborhood in Oklahoma because the people were black. And these people did not attack and the attackers did not do so.
There's a confusion. There's a confusion going on here, Sam. You're talking about the immutable characteristics of the blacks, but I think he's talking about the immutable characteristics of the whites.
Oh no, you're adding detail to our view that our viewers don't want to hear. Let's go back to our narrow area of acceptable discourse. Yeah, essentially this is an ambush, and I think that's what Sam doesn't realize. I'm a little bit worried that Sam might not even be aware of the nature of these two creators that he's dealing with, right? Part of the whole IDW game is to represent yourself as far to the left as you possibly can, right? You look at Tim Pool. In the beginning, he said, I'm a liberal. Now he says, I'm a centrist, right? You look at, you know, Jordan Peterson, a classical liberal, Sargon of Akkad, like, right. Part of the whole game of it is to set yourself up and be like, now I'm pretty liberal myself, but this wokeness has gone too far. And if even a liberal like me is bothered by the wokeness, you know it's out of control, right? That's part of their game. That's part of the way they move the Overton window. They claim an ideology that's further to the left than they really are. And if you're Sam Seder and you're busy doing, like, I don't know how many hours of show a week, but this guy works hard, right? This guy, he is always at it. I think he takes like Thursday off and that's it, you know, 4 days a week. Other than that, like, I'm just a little bit worried that maybe he doesn't know what he's stepping into here. Oh, wait, who said that, Shakespeare? Was that Sitch or Adam? Literally no one I inherited any wealth from no one I know inherited any of their wealth from their great-grandparents, grandparents, etc., because undocumented people can't have bank accounts and thus are forced to be paid under the counter in cash so that they can be underpaid and can't own homes, etc., due to no documentation. I do enjoy the Immajority. Yeah, that's the Thursday show, the Immajority report.
Being racist. So if you're saying that the people who attacked have an immutable characteristic of racism and that's why they attacked, you are also saying that people today who are white have this same immutable characteristic of being racist. That's the problem.
I think that attack would not have happened if those attackers were not white.
So do you think white people have an immutable characteristic of racism?
Within the context of our society?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there is. Well, I don't know that is. I think no. The question isn't whether the racism is mutable. The question is whether the whiteness is immutable.
Well, what is
in the
whiteness?
sense that? Well, in the sense that I mean,
okay, so now you're on a right-wing show talking about whiteness, right? And I will guarantee you, 95% of the audience takes that to mean phenotype, right? That's what they think whiteness is, right? There's a whole bunch of background to understand, you know, the social construction, which is what Sam's talking about, that they don't have, right? And like, you know, then you gotta ask yourself, like, what's your goal with going in here? You know, do you wanna shine a little light into the darkness? Do you wanna, like, you know, change some minds? You're changing, you know, hearts and minds here. Are you, you know, are you entertaining your audience? Because it doesn't look like it's being streamed on the Majority Report, right? So it's not really for the consumption of Sam's own audience. What's the goal here, right? Because if you're talking to people about subjects that they don't have like the basic understanding to be able to, you know, put into meaning, then, you know, you're setting yourself up for to get used, essentially.
I'm using the way that this guy is talking about it, because I don't believe that this guy thinks that race is a social construct. I mean, I'm talking about the way that he is using.
Yeah, Sam. Look, Sam. Like, you're right, Crystal. Sam is a great debater. Sam is actually so vicious in debates that he always tells stories of Michael Brooks kind of trying to hold him back, both in the Tim Pool debate and in the you know, where Matt was like, oh God, the way that Sam went in on Tim Pool, it was not pretty, right? And in terms of even Jimmy Dore, right? Matt's like texting Sam, being like, don't go for the neck, Sam, don't go for the neck, because Sam is absolute, like, he is a debate beast, you know what I mean? Like, he loves it. He revels in it. He lives for it. You know, give him a libertarian and like he will chew on them for hours and hours, right?
In this context, he is talking about.
But yeah, I do worry that he's walking into something that he doesn't fully understand. And that's part of their game plan, too. That's why they put themselves forward like this. Part of it is to cause confusion.
Race. When he says a mutable characteristic is race, and I would say that, yes, I think that it is inherent in our society. And like I say, I think both black and white people share in some function of white supremacy. But I think the whiteness of those people was the primary motivating factor in their attacking.
What do you mean by whiteness? How are you defining whiteness?
In the context of people.
So yeah, this is when I get to put in my expertise about debates, right? Debate time is not teaching time. debate cannot be used for instruction, right? It just doesn't work like that, right? If you want people to learn something, it can't be in the midst of, like, you know, a person versus person, or in this case, person versus two-person conflict, right? It's just not like, because like the people that you're debating have no interest in their audience understanding the concept that you're now like, you know, through him asking, like, trying to teach about, like, right? If their audience starts to understand that concept, that's bad for them, right? So yeah, I mean, this is like, this is one thing that debate is not good for. It's not good for learning. It's not good for you know, getting new concepts, right?
1921.
Yeah, what their
Debate is for
behavior is being
dunking,
motivated
true.
by whiteness.
Well, no, not in the. No, I think the key thing is, to be clear, you don't believe. I'm assuming you don't believe that, not like whiteness, like what does whiteness mean? But you don't believe that just because someone is white, that means that they're inherently racist, right?
No, I don't think. Well, I mean, look, I happen to think, no, not inherently. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by necessarily inherently.
It's an immutable characteristic that you're born with, in the same way that you're born with skin color.
Well, you're saying no, that racism is an immutable characteristic,
Right.
and I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I know. That's what I'm trying to clear out.
I'm not saying that racism is immutable.
Right.
I mean,
that's what the guy who's responding to this is. That's what he's talking about. He's saying
okay,
that you can't teach that racism is immutable.
Read the quote back to me again, please.
I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because
No,
of
I know
the
that
color
part.
of your
But
skin.
go
Well, wait,
to
but
where
do
he's
you
talking about the
understand?
Oklahoma.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
but
I understand.
do you understand
what
the
he
first
said.
sentence is saying what I'm saying?
That that the color of your skin dictates whether you are racist or not?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that's a helpful thing to teach people.
No, but you understand. I understand, but you understand that that's what he's saying in the first sentence, right?
I believe so. But
Okay.
let's go.
So I'll help you out, Sam. What do you? The correct answer is that nobody's actually teaching that, and if you're, the fact that he's saying this, it shows him to be bad faith. The Oklahoma administrator I'm talking about, right? Like this, it's a straw man. It's a straw man. There we go.
I mean, can you pop up the quote on the screen?
I can send it to Adam. I guess.
Yes.
I don't know how to do this.
Can you put it in like some type of chat or something?
Yeah, put it in the side chat.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I can just copy
But
and paste it.
I would also say, like, and I'm happy to continue to have this conversation, but the idea that
And I'm happy to listen to you continue to have this conversation, Sam, but not before I let people know that there is an ad break coming up in about 3 minutes. It's the middle of the hour, or the bottom of the hour. I call it the bottom of the hour. Other people object to that. We could call it the middle of the hour. We can call it anything you want. The point being that if you don't have a sub, you will be forced to watch an ad for 1 minute and 30 seconds. It might be kind of disruptive. You know, you might not know exactly what's going on when you come back, and you know, it might be a terrible ad. I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee what kind of ad it will be, but I can guarantee you that if you get a sub through a Twitch Prime, that means hooking up, if you have Amazon Prime to Twitch and getting a free sub of that, out of that, or you pay for a sub for $5 on desktop, or $6 on mobile, or if you're lucky enough to be the recipient of the gift sub. And my best advice as far as that is just be active in chat, right? Because, you know, if people see you, they see that you don't have a sub, there's more likely that somebody's gonna help you out there. But yeah, if you can do any of those things, then you will not have to worry about the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour ad break, and you'll also get lots of emotes too. So cool stuff.
we could be talking about this for 25 minutes,
Rate that one.
and you say that it's
Do we have bottom haters in chat? I hope not. God, they would hate me.
misinformation. But it's clearly like we have different interpretations
No,
of what this guy said.
The beginning of the clip is crystal clear, though, Sam. It's
I
undeniable what he's saying. Sitch, do you have the transcript from the beginning of the video?
I've literally been denying your interpretation of what he's saying.
This gives me hope, right? It's undeniable, Sam. I've literally been denying it. I don't know what you're talking about.
20 minutes, and now you're telling me it's undeniable.
Well, but
He does have instincts.
It's
He does have
deniable
instincts.
in the portion of the clip that you played, obviously, because that portion of the clip is kind of, you can interpret multiple different ways. But in the beginning of the clip, when the guy first asked the question, he says specifically that you can teach the Tulsa race riot, you can teach about slavery, you can teach about slavery being the worst thing ever.
Okay, but But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin.
Yeah, you can do all that stuff. You just can't relate it to the here and now. You have to pretend that racism is a problem that got solved back in the 60s, right? And you got to pretend that if it's not on the law books, if it's not in the policy books, then it doesn't exist. There's no institutional reservoir of racism, and it can't be in the culture either. So in other words, you couldn't have possibly been indoctrinated into this and be a vessel, you know, of Agent Smith or racism without realizing it, right? That is profoundly unhelpful, right? That is a law that says we are not going to move forward on this, right? We're going to pretend that the only real racism is like the racism that puts on a Klan outfit and marches down the street and burns crosses and, you know, stomps around in Doc Martens with red laces. You know what I mean? That's the only real racism. Anything else is totally above board. And, you know, it's racist of you to point it out, actually, right? It's not helpful. It's not helpful.
Is where I say that is critical race theory. You're saying that race defines a person. I reject that. So I would say, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Now, which part did we play?
That's the part you played.
This whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you have the beginning
I have
context?
the part that you didn't. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, bring that up.
Okay.
That's the part that's undeniable.
Okay, well, let me. Well, but there's no.
Now,
you
the
can't-
one
you
good
can't-
thing I will say about Sitch and Adam is that they do tend to have a lot of links in their doobly-doo. Here's the doobly-doo, if you don't know what that means, right? Generally, am I wrong? Wow, I was trying to compliment them. I guess not in this one, huh? Oh well, you know, look, it's a lot to put all the links that you want to put in your doobly-doo. So yeah, this one's not in here, but like they're responding to a clip that a segment that Sam made, and I kind of wanted to watch that.
You can't accuse me of using one part of what he says and generalizing on that, and then saying that because he said something that
This is causing more confusion. I'm sorry, Jello. You don't have to worry about the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour ad break. All you have to worry about is hitting that like.
mitigates that,
Since you're on YouTube.
that is the one that is holding.
Well, but as a
I'm suggesting
But yes, I agree. Twitch is very confusing.
the whole question of whether this guy is fudging around the genuine implications of that Oklahoma attack
Look, if
on
he's-
Blackwell.
If he's
is-
fudging around, Sam, that's totally within your realm to call him out for. But if there are two clips, if there's a clip that you can interpret the way that you interpret it, and then there's another clip where it's crystal clear that your interpretation is incorrect, as a journalist, don't you owe it to your audience
Well,
to basically correct the record?
I mean, someone asked me last night if I consider myself a journalist, and I don't really. I think there are sometimes I do journalism when I interview people, but in the main, no, I'm not. I do a podcast and a YouTube.
Well,
But anyways, that's not the point.
we get
Let me
accused.
do this. Okay, which of these three clips here that you posted here was the ones that we talked about?
So this segment is called Please Define Whiteness, right? And I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And also, like I said, oh, you found it. Thank you, Natalie. Like I said, you know, debate time is not didactic. Didactic is a fancy word for like, you know, educational, right? You know, it's not the time to be educating people on concepts that they might not be familiar with. Because right, when most conservatives hear this word whiteness, they are thinking about a phenotype, right? They are thinking about a you know, like a, you know, a hue to skin, right?
The first thing that I
And
posted
that is not what Sam means by whiteness.
Okay, so thank you. I'm sorry to address that part. I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin or your gender, anything like that, that you're less of a person or inherently racist. That's very good of it. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. Now, to look at the Oklahoma race riot as an action of individuals is to fundamentally miss the key dynamic that's going on there. This was not just random individuals. They were organizing around a principle. That
but nobody's
we're
doing
not
that.
going to we're not going to allow Black people to accrue wealth and political power. That's what they're doing.
That is
what they're doing.
fine.
And they are saying, and let's be clear, they are saying Black people as distinct from them as white people.
Like I said, he says in the very beginning that you can teach the darker parts of American history, that America has these racist
But
roots.
then he is literally, his whole argument is that doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. And the
Sitch,
point is,
This is where I think the
Even the way that they're phrasing this, the darker parts of American history, Like, right, the few moments, rare though they may be, when America, as a nation, did not act in an exemplary manner. And there might have been a little bit of racism that happened. There might have been some violence along those racist lines. You know, like acting like this is the exception and not the rule is kind of wild. I don't know.
The misconfusion is coming from. So the guy asked the question.
Par for the course when you're
how
dealing
can
with
you teach
right-wingers.
about the Tulsa Race Massacre without running afoul of the CRT bill. That's the context. In the first answer, he says you can teach all about the Tulsa Race Massacre, the good, bad, and ugly, blah, 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 blah. And the guy asked again. He says, follow up, how does this not run afoul of the CRT bill? And that's why he says, oh, I'm sorry I didn't address that. And so when he says, I would never tell a kid because of the color of his skin that you're inherently racist.
Medfly says, Sam Seder fumbled with his debates with Adam and Sitch and Jackson Hinkle simply because they are not the type. There we go. I told you that ad break was coming, and now you're not hearing what I'm saying. They are not the type of people he's usually talking to. Sam's not a professional YouTuber and a streamer. Yeah, and like I said, he's a very busy guy. You know, he's a father. He's got 2, or is it 3 kids? I don't know. He's got kids, right? And you know, he does a lot of hours on stream. And also, like, I would guess a lot of hours in preparation. If you notice, there's like a difference between what I'm doing here, which is, you know, basic React content, and what Sam's doing, which is a lot of times kind of, it's not exactly written, you know, it's not like reading from a script or anything like that, but it's prepared. There's a lot more preparation. In fact, I think I've heard him talk about that, the you know, kind of preparation that goes into putting, you know, just one of his shows together, right? So he's a busy guy, and, you know, I'm not, I just like you, Medplay, I'm not surprised when he doesn't know about certain YouTubers or content creators.
He's saying that is the part that runs afoul of the CRT bill, is teaching that concept. And he's saying that you can teach the Tulsa Race Massacre without teaching that specific concept, and that's why it doesn't run afoul of the CRT bill. That's the context of this interaction.
Since you can't just read the first part of what he said?
Which is, stop.
What's it?
No, what were you going to say?
I'm reading the thing that you said.
Okay, I can read it.
Yeah, read it, Sitch.
The first thing, so someone,
no, the second thing.
Yeah, I know. When the person asks him originally,
you can only do learning if you do it like what Innuendo said. Are you talking about the you can't get snakes from chicken eggs or chickens from snake eggs or something?
Originally about this, he says, we wrote at the very beginning, all Oklahoma standards have to be taught. This is not an end around to say we're not going to teach the Tulsa Race Massacre. That is absolutely not the intention. It was verbatim in the bill to say all these standards have to be taught. I believe our kids have to know all of our history. The good,
anyway,
the bad,
I'm going to go grab
I
some
believe this is absolutely
coffee.
the greatest
It's
country in the
one
history of
thing
the
that
world. I
stops
don't
me
think there's any
from
doubt about
being
it. That doesn't
hungry,
mean there weren't mistakes
and
made. That doesn't mean
I'm
that
kind of
we didn't
hungry
look for
right now,
principles.
so maybe
the
the
only way our
coffee
kids have to
will
learn from our history and make
will
this
help
country
me out
continue
with
to be the
that.
best country is to understand those times we fell short. A very clear, very direct understanding of those events. I will always support that our kids should know about the Tulsa Race Massacre. They absolutely should. There are standards around it. I'm continuing to work to develop even more robust curriculum around these events. I don't want to hide any part of our history. It all needs to be right there, very plain, very direct, so that we can learn from it. So I do think it's very important.
Thank you, Sitch. He
So,
read
I mean,
it.
when-
Is that
when
not
he says
crystal
that-
clear?
I mean, when he says it, to me, it's very clear that he's not trying to hide any aspect of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Well, it's not a question of hiding a specific actions that take place in the Tulsa Race Massacre. The idea is putting it into a broader context. If the Tulsa Race Massacre was just about a couple of individuals, then you have no notion that it was actually about a systemic sort of move to deny an entire section of town of Black people power and money. And then if you don't know that the Tulsa Race Massacre was a function of many, many such massacres, where you had politicians assassinated in South Carolina, where you had a Black political class driven out, where all of the gains that have been made in Reconstruction in terms of Black political power and Black wealth, if you just isolate it and do not put it into the greater context, you don't understand what's really actually going on.
But he doesn't deny that you can't put it into that context.
I could go, but
Look,
he is.
Sam's also an Xer. Hey, what's up, Matthew Moulton? Sam's also an Xer, so he doesn't understand the media culture millennials and Zoomers grew up in. Yeah. I was talking about this earlier, right? I had a little chat with some people in terms of a game plan as a digital creator myself, and we were talking about like kind of the difference between people who grew up with the internet and people who sort of merely adopted. See, I shouldn't do that because you literally can't hear me when I cover up my mouth like Bane. But yeah, people who kind of adopted the internet later on, right? And you know, it's the
I just want to get your response to what. Look, I just want to get.
It's significant in terms of knowing who you're talking to and adjusting your content accordingly.
Response to what he said. Like, does that?
They're trying to have Sam's trying to have a conversation about actually the concept of whiteness here, right? And he's on a right-wing stream, right? With an audience that just does not have the foundation to understand even what's meant by that, right? So this is kind of a bad scene here, right? This all started from a clip of Sam talking about the Tulsa massacre, talking about, like, you know, the destruction of Black Wall Street, right? And talking about what a Oklahoma educational official said about, you know, what can't be taught in Oklahoma classrooms, right? In terms of you know, history of racism. So I mean, I don't know, like I said, Sam's a great debater. He's got great instincts. He's a happy warrior. He enjoys the drama. He enjoys the chaos, right? He's always having to have people, like back in the day, it would have been Michael Brooks, to tell him, like, don't always go for the jugular, because, like, his instinct, he's kind of got the killer instinct. So, you know, I mean, he's good at what he's doing right here. But we're talking about, like, you know, the few times that we've seen him not perform well in a debate scenario is when he's walking into a situation that he doesn't completely understand, with creators that he doesn't exactly know where they're coming from. This has happened once before with Jackson Hinkle, and we're kind of seeing this happen again with Sitch and Adam, potentially. I think Destiny used to take the approach of just dunking on his debates opponents, but lately he's we've been more empathic. Wow. You know, when I talked to him, he just played the piano and ignored what I was saying. So,
ring of some sort of white supremacist diatribe, what Sitch just read. Because to me, it seems crystal clear that he's saying, look, America did not live up to their ideals.
Listen,
America has failed in the past.
You want me to concede to see this the way that you see it.
Well, no, I want to see how you see it.
I'm explaining to you exactly. If I look at one interaction during the Tulsa Race Massacre.
You know what time it is? It's time for Void Coffee.
One individual attacking one other individual. I don't get a full picture of what's going on there.
None of that is in what he said, though.
Excuse me. I'm trying to explain to you what is wrong with it. He says it doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. To look at the Tulsa Race Massacre as actions of individuals, okay, as opposed to as a part of a broader systemic move to deny a class of people, Black people, power and money in Oklahoma City.
Here we go.
Void Coffee.
Piping hot from the void, yes.
And then to not see that in the context of what was happening in post-Reconstruction America, where you had 6 million members of the KKK, particularly in that decade, where you had the revving up of—
Oh my God, Medplay, you're reminding me of a video that I need to get done for you. Yeah, I kind of got halfway done with this video and I realized I wanted to make it even more better. What's up, Cat? I don't know, he could probably give a brief explanation about how whiteness is meant to exclude by talking about how the definition has changed really quick. Like, he could, but, like, in general, you're talking to an audience that's not receptive. They're gonna say he's rambling. They're gonna tune out, right? You know, this is a right-wing audience. It's not a, I mean, based on the creators, I would say it's like not like a right-wing MAGA audience, right? It's more like an intellectual dark web, you know, kind of audience, right? And I think that might be what confused Sam about, like, what exactly he's walking into. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, you know, I mean, like, it can be taught. It's just like, generally a debate is not the, oh my God. Yo, this chat is gross. I'm sorry. I gotta never look at the chat. Never look at the chat.
Jim Crow laws, where you had a series of massacres.
Sam is sending these two back to school. Yeah, but I mean, like, just remember, like, the problem with this is that the audience here is literally their audience. This isn't going off on MR. This isn't a piece of Sam's content. Like, this is a discussion that Sam's having with these two, and you got to ask yourself, you know, what is your purpose? What is your goal? What are you going for, right? And I don't know. At this point, I don't know what good could come out of this, but
like this.
Like I said, Sam loves debating, and give him a chance, and he'll go for it. I don't want to see. I don't like seeing him feeling like he's walking into a trap. If he says Irish people weren't considered, yeah, like I mean, there might be some way to do that. It's just like you generally aren't given the time and space to educate in a debate. And you saw what happened when I tried to talk to Destiny, right? No, you didn't. You might not have seen. I've taken that video down mainly because I'm not really trying to attract that particular audience anymore, right? And having a debate with Destiny is a great way to get that kind of audience, right? But I just wanted to talk to him about, like, he's all been out of shape about cancel culture. Oh my God, Demon Mama's gonna get me canceled. Demon Mama's gonna say I'm transphobic, and then somebody's gonna think I'm a horrible person, and I'm gonna lose a sponsorship. Oh, we gotta stop this. Like, she's the worst person in the world, right? And I'm trying to talk to him about the like the actual concept that he's talking about sounds a lot more like the scapegoating and exclusion that marginalized people have been subject to throughout the years, right? And like be like, okay, if you're really worried about cancel culture, maybe think about us, right? Because like, as far as scapegoating and inclusion and exclusion, it's the kind of thing that more likely happens to marginalized groups rather than someone like like Steven, right? But like his response was literally like, she is rambling, let me go play the piano, right? So I mean, like, do you think I taught Destiny anything? Obviously not. Did somebody in his audience learn something? I don't think so, right? I probably didn't do a lot of good in that debate, because I tried to teach during a debate, and I didn't even want it to be a debate. I just wanted to kind of like add on to like, well, if you're concerned about cancel culture, maybe think about the real victims of actual cancel culture, rather than this like ephemeral idea that you're gonna somehow like honestly, like Destiny doesn't have that much to worry about. Right? I, on the other hand, got shit canned for real. For what? For doing what? For standing up for trans rights. Yeah. So, yeah.
To dispossess black people of political power, to focus on...
You saw me debate with Destiny.
...the individual, is to deny what was going on during that entire era. And then to deny what was going on in that entire era is also to deny the larger context of American history. And that is why I compared it to the lost cause. Because it is a denial of. But I mean, do you understand? Like, Jello, have you seen people get absolutely like destroyed for disagreeing with Destiny or Vosh or whoever? I mean, have you seen the Professor Flowers debate? Can you understand maybe why I might be a little bit cautious in having a conversation like that? That how the stakes might be elevated for a person like me? Of history.
He says specifically, though, that's teaching the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we've made mistakes in the past. He says that specifically.
But I'm sorry, the idea of the Oklahoma...
Who's this we? We've made mistakes in the past? Because, you'd think the we would be like the American people, but you're talking about a group of American people being victimized by another group, right? So what do you mean by we?
The Oklahoma race massacre being a mistake, as opposed to literally a campaign that was across many parts of the country
you don't
dispossess a class of people from...
And to be honest, I really wasn't trying to debate Destiny. I just thought that maybe I could reach him. Like, I mean, that was my approach early on, right? With larger creators, like that like, I really took them seriously when they said that, they were open to an argument, they were open to a debate, they were open to learning, right? And I tried to kind of provide like what was missing, and it turns out there just really isn't any interest for them. They want to weaponize their privilege. They rely on that weaponization of privilege, and so when you try to talk to them about maybe taking less privileged people into consideration, it is just like you're knocking on a locked door there. Like, right, there's
political power is like
mistake is not strong enough a word. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not just
you would classify it as a mistake, though.
In the Oklahoma
Jello, I wish I could have been more straightforward as well, right?
History guidelines. It says to teach everything you're talking about. It says to teach about the rise of black towns. It says to teach about the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. It says to teach about the emergence of Black Wall Street and the Tulsa race massacre. It says to
What
teach
is,
about
what does it
all
tell
these...
that you cannot read me the
And you can see how I changed my strategy, post that, right? I thought that maybe I could find allies that were interested in learning. And instead what I found was hostility. And the idea that the only value I had to these people is the, rubber stamp that I could give to them of saying, this guy's okay. This guy's not transphobic. This guy's doing right by us trans people. That's all they were interested in, right? And so where does that put me, right? The only logical position I can take at that point is opposition. But I hope that people understand it's not like a reactive, knee-jerk kind of opposition. It's not an angry, vengeful sort of opposition. It is a tactical, necessary opposition to people that are harming us, maybe without realizing that they're doing so.
the Oklahoma law?
Which the anti-CRT thing?
Yeah.
Says no teacher or administrator or other employee or school district charter, school or virtual school charter should require to make part of the course the following concepts. Number 1, race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. Number 2, that an individual by virtue of his race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Number 3.
You didn't understand it until I was summarized it just now. Well, I mean, I don't know, Destiny, maybe it was. It depends on were you paying attention to Destiny's beautiful piano playing or what I was saying, right?
3, an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partially because of his or her race or sex. Number 4, members of one race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. Number 5, an individual's moral character is necessarily determined by his race or sex. Number 6, an individual by virtue of his race or sex bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. Number 7, an individual should...
Do you see that? Right? I mean, look, okay. Let me see if I can help here. An individual should not be made to feel that they bear responsibility for acts perpetrated by members of their age, or what do they say? Something race or sex, right? So, at no point in my education did a teacher ever do that, right? And I've had all kinds of teachers, right, in terms of, their own background, right? Nobody ever put that on me. But there were times when I took what was said as an attack, as a placement of guilt upon me, right? I gotta be honest, though, that was in my mind. That wasn't anything that they said, right? That was my own reaction. That was my own fragility that did that, right? That's white fragility.
Feel discomfort, guilt,
Wait,
anguish,
I'm
or
sorry,
any other
would you
form.
read that last one for me again?
Any individual by virtue of his or her race or sex bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex.
Do you disagree? Do you disagree with that, Sam?
No, I was curious about...
what they're saying would be if you sat down and your teacher was like, all right, now listen here. You white people in the class, all right? This is what happened in history. It was done by people like you. You did it, right? This is your fault. Nobody says that. That doesn't really happen, except for in our own, mental processes of white fragility. That's where that takes place. That's imaginary. That is 100% imaginary.
The wording. I mean, let's be clear. In practice, a lot of this wording can be interpreted in a myriad of ways.
Sure,
right?
language is that way. Yeah.
On its face, though, this would all be totally acceptable if it was passed in the 1960s, right? This would all be hailed as a civil rights victory in the 1960s.
Yes.
There we go. Everything was solved in the 60s, right? Everything was solved in the 60s. That was they got rid of segregation, they got rid of Jim Crow, they passed the Civil Rights Act, and everything was peachy keen. So thereby, if you're going by that mentality, then any attempt to work on racism, it is inherently, I guess, racist against white people, because everything was made perfect in the 60s. That is such a that is an absurdly naive point of view for a professional commentator, right? But hey, the right wing, these kind of audiences, they'll let you get away with it, right?
At a time prior to the Civil Rights Act, you're probably right.
Oh my God.
In fact, if it was done during slavery, it would be hailed as.
But you know what I won't let you get away with is not subscribing before the top of the hour ad break, because you will be served an ad. You will be taken out of your immersion. Whatever I'm saying, you're going to miss, right? Because there'll be like 1 minute and 30 seconds of just pure advertisement. I can't control what that advertisement is. It might be a really annoying ad. I don't know what it's going to be, but they're going to hit you with an ad, right? They're going to hit you with an ad unless you can use a Twitch Prime sub to get Twitch. If you can use your Amazon Prime account to get a free sub from Twitch and use that to get out of the ad break, or you can spend $5 of your own on desktop or $6 of your own on mobile in order to get out of that ad break, or if you're lucky enough, right, you want to roll the dice, and if you do feel lucky, punk, right, you might just possibly get a gift sub. It's going to happen more often. I can't guarantee it, but it's going to be more likely to happen if you're active in chat. So there we go.
Real victory.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Of course.
Right. Yes, but we're 60 years out from the and there is a resurgence of an attempt to sort of like a neo-Confederate resurgence in this country.
But what is the problem with
You're gonna get clipped, Sam. You're gonna get clipped.
any of the language that?
well, I mean, you can
I
continue
mean, these people think that that's ridiculous, right? They don't see it.
to read some of the law, but I think like the idea that someone is that to say that white people.
You're wondering about Adam and Stitch's ideology? I mean, I would say the best characterization is intellectual dark web, right? The kind of people that are like, oh, I'm a liberal, but like the left is crazy, right? Like I'm the like right. It's that kind of thing, right? It's the kind of I'm trying to think of a good example. Bill Maher. No, not even Bill Maher. Yeah, wait, no, Bill Maher. Bill Maher. That's about where they're at. Yeah, I mean, like classical liberal. I think Sargon of Akkad made that famous. I'm a classical liberal, right? But really, it's like intellectual dark web is like a false claim of centrism in order to kind of work the refs of the Overton window, if that makes sense, right? You put yourself as far to the left as you can justify, right? And then you say some right wing shit. That's what we're dealing with.
People have unconscious, and I would argue that it's not exclusive to white people. I think that there's a
Sitch lives in Florida. I didn't know that.
Practice of white supremacy amongst black people as well. But to say that it is because of our whiteness that we don't have that we have unconscious biases, or we could have unconscious biases, and I believe under that law there is a real question as to
devil's advocate, centrist, that kind of fits.
Whether I could say that,
right? So just to be clear, they're not MAGA, right? They're not MAGA chuds, and I don't even get the feeling that, at least in Adam's case, that he's particularly like libertarian. Right, you're talking about somebody that kind of claims to be a centrist. Let's read Adam's thing here. Comedy show
in a classroom.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
even that we could have unconscious biases. Right. I think that is a real problem.
I think the concept of whether.
Okay, so his little explanation, the little thing, subtitle under his name, comedy show host. So don't take him too seriously. He's just a comedy guy. He's not ideological. No, he's just a comedy dude, right? And then immune system of society. Yeah. So and then this all started with them saying, Sam, you're spreading disinformation. We can't allow this to happen. In order to have a proper discourse amongst our in our society, we need to have the right information. And when bad faith actors like Sam Seder come and they distort what good-natured, good faith people like this educational official from the state of Oklahoma, are saying, then we can't have that kind of discourse. Like, so we gotta correct the record, Sam. I'm so sorry. You're spreading misinformation.
People have these unconscious biases. I understand if in a public school, you say, okay, in history class and things of this nature. We shouldn't be teaching that, people possibly have unconscious biases, which is
what if it's a
contested topic.
social studies class?
I think it's totally fine if parents don't want to teach the idea.
It's a contested topic. It's a contested subject. It's a contested idea that there might be an unconscious bias. Really? Out of fucks to give. Thank you for the re-up on the YouTube membership. That is like literally the first anything in terms of tossing a coin to your streamer that I've got today. So
frankly,
I appreciate you
that people have these unconscious biases. I think it's totally fine in a public school. And to me, it takes like a very far jump to go from you can't teach that people have unconscious biases to this is the rise of like the neo-Confederacy.
Well, I think passing laws to say that we can't teach that we have unconscious biases is, I think that is I don't think it's
it's controversial idea like climate change or the spherical Earth or the heliocentric theory of the solar system.
I don't think it has the exact same implications, but it is the exact same dynamic. It's the same impetus. It's just like, you're not able, it's like when Lee Atwater said with the Southern strategy, we can no longer after the Civil Rights Act, we can no longer use the N-word. So we say busing.
Sam is unhinged. Oh my God. Yeah, like, see, I don't see what you're accomplishing by going on here. Look, I don't know. He loves to debate, so.
You can't use the N-word, so we say raise taxes.
You're not one of those sun orbiter people, are you?
Sam, do you disagree with the part of the law that states that you can't say that people have immutable characteristics? Because, for me, that is textbook racism. To teach that, someone has some kind of behavior specifically because they're a certain race or religion or anything seems like textbook racism to me. And the law specifically, I think, is against that.
But why make a law against something that's not happening in school? Because that's literally not happening. That nobody's teaching that anywhere, right? You only have a law like that if you mean something a little bit different than literally what you said, right? If you're going to expand that definition to talking about the discussions of implicit bias, they are a form of putting an immutable characteristic on a group, in this case white people, right? That's I don't know which provision of the law you're talking about.
Same like the provisions of that law that
same as the Don't Say Gay bill. Yeah,
I have no issue with, and I would suggest that they're probably in there as a way of getting the parts that are really problematic. Like, I do think it's very problematic that you cannot teach that that you could have unconscious racism. Yeah, well, I think that's very
This is why I don't like that. The Oklahoma State, they actually put out some pretty good guidelines where they kind of go over all these various things. And when they talk about the unconscious bias part, they say, this is the example they give, is they say it's acceptable to teach that stereotypes and xenophobia do exist and can lead to harmful consequences. But it's not acceptable to teach students that people of a specific race are always racist, regardless of whether they're aware of their racist assumptions and acts because of unconscious bias. And to me, I understand that that's a part of, some ideologies, is the fact that we're all kind of operating under these unconscious biases. Personally, I don't think it's helpful or useful to conceptualize this, because the way this basically breaks down is that whenever someone's having an argument about whether something is racist or offensive, the person will basically fall back on, well, you can't see it because of your skin color. This is your unconscious bias.
No, bruh, it's not because of your color. It's because you grow up in a society with unspoken assumptions. Plus, no one is saying anything is inherent to any group. If colonization near happened and we didn't live in a white supremacist society, I don't think white people would have that unconscious bias necessarily. Yeah, it's a social construction. So, that's but you can see, like, if they're making the law is to prevent something from getting taught, right? And if they're not teaching an inherent immutable bias, then or if they're not targeting, if that's not apparent, then what are they going to call that, right? And I think the most likely thing is like a discussion of unconscious bias, right? And you can see it with Sitch and Adam, right? They're saying, wait, there's nothing to worry about unless you really want people to be taught that there's an inherent immutable bias, just like baked into white people's DNA or something like that, right? And then they're going on and say, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think this whole thing about unconscious bias, that sounds a lot like immutable. Yeah, you can see where it's going on. They are gaslighting, my dude. They are gaslighting Sam Seder here.
I have no problem with that not being taught in public schools.
When was this debate? Rebel Communicate asks. 6 days ago.
Okay, well, I think that is. I think that is problematic. I do think that's problematic. The idea that you're unaware of that your position in society can obscure society's dynamics, I think is a really important thing to teach kids.
Well, I don't think it's not saying that you can't say that there's a potential for unconscious bias. It's saying you can't say that that's inherent, that you inherently have this unconscious bias.
I think it's more than.
What if I said it was in the air we breathe, in the water we drink?
Likely that, inherent, I don't think it means that it is something that you're born with necessarily, as much as.
Oh my God! There we go. I told you.
That's what inherent.
I tried to warn them. I tried to warn them, chat, that the ad break was coming, and they didn't believe me.
Well, that you're.
Now we're even further away from that goal of 100 sub points than when we started, and we're not going to get to watch that extra special content.
That it is a.
Adam and Sitch are so squirmy. Yeah.
What do you call it? A trait?
Yeah, and my concern is that, like, I'm not sure that Sam knows what he's walking into, right? I'm not sure if Sam's knows what he signed up for here.
Function that you are born into, I should say, right? Like, you are acculturated as a white person to a certain status in society that not necessarily.
Look, and if you think that Adam's got like a glazed, uncomprehending like look on his face, just imagine the expressions of their chat, right? None of this is getting through. That's the problem, right? When you're in a debate and you're forced in a position where you have to teach a concept that your audience is unaware of, like, that is a bad place to be, right? Think of Innuendo Studios. Think of the alt-right playbook, right? There's a video called Never Play Defense, and they're talking about how the right wing, operates, right? And how people on the left and people on the right grok or understand or put together, a debate differently, right? On the left, we're looking for, the conclusions following the premises and stuff like that. We're looking for, the logical processes. We're, looking for, whether what somebody's saying is factual, etc., right? That's what tells us who won the debate. On the right, though, they're looking at postures, right? And a winning posture for the right, in other words, for Sitch and Adam's audience, right? A winning posture is a posture that says everything in a confident, quippy way, right? And so the second that you're caught explaining something, you are losing the debate from their perspective. You're back on your heels, right? You're explaining something, right? So that's why, this sort of education is just coming in a place where it's not going to do any good, right? If you have to educate the audience during a debate with right-wingers, you're losing to that audience, right? And that's the only audience that's here, right? Like I said before, Sam's not streaming this. This isn't going up on, as far as I know, it didn't go up on Sam's channel, right? This is an exclusive for Sitch and Adam's audience, right? And they are seeing Sam flailing here, even though he's the one that's making sense. He's the one that knows what he's talking about. He's the one with the correct definitions of stuff, right? None of that's getting through to the right wing. Never play defense.
You could argue also, statistically speaking, that you're born into it because you're going to be more likely in a better hospital. Your chances of your mother dying during childbirth are less. There's a whole host of things that are predetermined as you're born. that can be measured by your skin color. That's just a reality.
I think when we're
I don't
talking
know how
about,
you even begin to deny that.
I think when we're talking about public schools, that, you know, we have to understand that, you know, there's a lot of people in this country. The public schools are supposed to be basically, you know, something for everyone. And the concept of, like, you know, the unconscious bias and that we're all living in, you know, white supremacy and all these things. I mean, that's a content.
Literally, my dude is saying that white people are excluded from a public school that's teaching about implicit bias, right? No, like, white people are the ones who need to, like, learn this stuff, right? Most of all, like, they're the vector of the transmission of of racism, which manifests through unconscious bias. And when you take that unconscious bias and you make it conscious, you give people a chance at least to be aware enough of what's going on that they're not going to transmit that. Because, like, we're not talking about, like, racist, foaming at the mouth KKK people here, right? You're talking about people that think of themselves as good people, as not being racist, but yet they've still internalized a certain amount of white supremacy without being aware of it. What is your beef with making those people trying to bring that to consciousness during social studies class, during history class, right? Like, this, I think school's the perfect venue for this, right? Look, if this stuff got taught in school, like, your audience might actually know what Sam's trying to say. They might not actually go off over the top of the head like it is, right? This might be a more productive discussion, in other words, right? If this kind of stuff got, this is the kind of stuff that, if you're serious about working towards a less racist future, that it's got to be part of the curriculum. And Oklahoma literally just outlawed it. DeSantis is calling it CRT and making it illegal. They're threatening people's teaching licenses, right? And they don't even know what's going to be considered beyond the pale. What's going to get your license pulled? So if you're that teacher, you're going to stay well away from any discussion of implicit bias. And the beat goes on and racism continues, right? That's literally what they're arguing for. Perpetuating racism.
A topic is a very contentious opinion that a lot of people in this country don't.
You learned about unconscious bias from Roseanne in the 90s. They didn't call it that back then, which is probably why she didn't set fire to anything in a rage. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a funny thing about Roseanne is, like, my understanding of her sitcom was very differently politically oriented to the Roseanne Barr as a comedian in this time.
Don't even agree with, and I don't see a problem that public schools.
Yeah, right. Adadak, if I'm a teacher, I'm applying for jobs in a different state.
Not going to teach something that is
too risky,
politically motivated in one direction in that fashion.
I know
that's your living, right? That's how you pay for to live, right? That's like,
you said that,
and I don't see how that leads to, like, the downfall of our society to some kind of
I disagree. And because
you think that one concept is
I don't
think
think
the Confederacy.
What you're saying is misinformation any more than my expressing the opposite opinion is misinformation. You can disagree with my opinion, and people can assess based upon the way that we've argued about it.
If you talked about the Oklahoma law,
Sam's employees are probably cringing right now seeing this debate.
And you said, I disagree with this aspect.
He did talk about the debate, right? Like, I don't think it got made into a segment, but I did see Sitch and Adam putting up their response to Sam's discussion of this debate. So
I think the entire
let him finish that.
If you talked about the Oklahoma anti-CRT bill and you said, I think that this part of it is wrong, I think you should be able to teach that there's unconscious racism or whatever. That's not misinformation. That's fine. The misinformation element to me, and the problem with it, is that when you misinterpret, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and you only play half of the guy's answer, and you make it sound like, oh, this guy is trying to hide up the Tulsa race massacre, and then you use that to say that Oklahoma is, like, engaged in lost causism, and this is some kind of white supremacy. I mean, I think that is clearly not true.
The very act of proposing and passing anti-CRT laws is, in fact, part of a white supremacist project, and one that is akin, obviously, we're in a different era, but akin to the lost cause. Yes. I mean, the guy who developed the whole thing, Rufo himself, more or less articulated stuff like that back
didn't say it was
on
a lost
Twitter.
Cause. What do you mean?
No, he didn't say it was a lost cause, but he said, like, we're just going to put out these words and we're going to make it a boogeyman. And it's almost like it is, like I say, eerily reminiscent of Lee Atwater's. We can't say the N-word anymore. but we say these other things.
Sam, this makes all kinds of sense to your audience, right? I know what Sam's talking about. Lee Atwater famously talked about the Southern strategy and the way that it was used post civil rights bill, right? That like in the, you know, in the 60s and 50s, you could be openly racist, right? You could be openly you could be pro segregation, and then that's what the people who, you know, were against the civil rights bill did, right? But in the 70s, you get in trouble for that, right? So he put it very crudely, but he's literally like, you can say N-word, 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 you know, back in the day, but that doesn't work anymore. So now you got to say busing, now you got to say welfare, now you got to say all these code words that are not explicitly like, you know, racist in their literal sense, but that, you know, to a, you know, racist white, you know, voter, are dog whistles essentially, right? So we know that. I mean, like a lot of you have probably heard of Lee Atwater before. If you're not, you understand the concept of dog whistles and you know what he's talking about. I think this is lost on Sitch and Adam's audience. I don't think there's anybody out there that's even understanding the words that are coming out of Sam Seder's mouth here. Yeah,
that are coded and signify and hit the same buttons, and that's exactly what I think it is.
Sam, before we move past this, I just want to get this clear, because do you think we can fight racism? Like I'm against racism, and I
feel like you're the one who doesn't think that we can fight racism, right? Like yeah. The laws that you're signing off on are preventing the unconscious processes that harbor racism from becoming conscious, and that is the first step. That is the first step to being able to unwind it. Because like I said, you know, racism that marches down the street with a tiki torch is very easy to identify. The entire country said, you know, when they saw the people in Charlottesville say, we do not want this. This is not, no, bad, right? That was very easy to identify, right? When they literally like walk down the street shouting anti-Semitic slogans like that racism is really easy to identify. The racism that isn't easy to identify is the racism that like kind of hides itself in our unconscious. So talking about unconscious bias is the prerequisite to being able to do something about racism. Yeah, no, this is ironic.
You know, I'm an old school liberal. I believe in, you know, trying to get a colorblind society where people are, you know, as Martin Luther King always says, judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But what you're saying with the unconscious bias stuff, it makes me wonder, you know, if that's even a possibility in your estimation.
I mean,
so you can see that he's taking unconscious bias as meaning. So this is like, right, he said there's no problem, right? Because the only thing you're not allowed to teach is that like that racism is like inherent, or it's oh god, I can't remember, immutable. Yeah, it was the word that they use, right? Like that's the only thing that like they're disallowing the teaching of. But Sam's literally talking about like taking the unconscious you know, bias and making it conscious, and he's responding with, oh, okay, so you think it's immutable. So like you're showing me right there that you can't disambiguate argument A, it's immutable, it's inherent, like, you know, to my phenotype of you know, my skin, right? Versus what Sam is saying, which is that it is unconscious, right? You're confusing those two concepts. What am I supposed to think? How am I supposed to imagine that that's going to operate as a law, right? If I'm seeing somebody that's actually not that far down the line as far as being a conservative, right? This is IDW. These aren't MAGA chuds. These aren't, you know, like, right? They're not like they're not like crypto fash DeSantis voters or something like that, right? You know, this is conservative light here, right? And even he's confusing it, right? He's saying, well, what I hear you saying, Sam, is that it's immutable and it's inherent, right? So therefore, it's against the law to teach in Oklahoma. And like I said, with the confusion inherent in this, in the way this is written, the way that a teacher is going to respond to this, because the teacher, their license, their livelihood is on the line. So it sets up kind of a, you know, in the way the metaphor of the panopticon, where we end up surveilling ourselves in the panopticon, because we know that at any time somebody could be watching. So we're like, oh, I better not even do anything that's going to come close to being like against the rules, right? If you aren't entirely sure if teaching unconscious bias as a concept, trying to make people aware that this can happen, is going to be taken like you're taking it as being teaching that it's immutable and inherent bias, then it's not safe for you to teach it as a teacher, right? You by hook or by crook, you're making the kind of instruction that might eventually wind down racism as a phenomenon. You're making it so that can't be taught.
Know if we can ever get to the point where people don't have unconscious biases. I don't know if we can ever get to that.
Yeah, like Natalie, you could be right. I don't know what's in Adam Friend's heart, right? But you definitely are seeing him conflating two what in my mind and in Sam's mind are two very different ideas as being the same one, and thereby, it feels like you're making it illegal to teach about unconscious bias.
I am more concerned with dealing with the implications of those biases first.
Right. So you do think we should fight racism? And
by passing these, so-called anti-CRT laws.
Yeah. Was that a confusion? Like, you do think we should fight racism? No. Sam's like a big fan of racism. That's like literally straw manning him in the worst way possible. Putting words in his mouth that more properly fit in your own mouth, right? That is, whoever said that these dudes were weasels, a little bit weaselly, a little bit wiggly, a little bit slippery, you are right. And chat, you have my full permission to post weasels in chat, but understand that you'll only be able to post weasels in chat if you're a sub on Twitch or on YouTube. You have access to those emotes. Go check them out right now. Post some weasels in chat if you can.
School kids. The whole act, in my mind, is a way to obscure the reality of things like I just described. That it's significantly hotter in black people's neighborhoods. That the tax code, though it wasn't written necessarily to discriminate against black people, does discriminate against black people because of the relationship between the tax code and having political power.
This is where we completely disagree, because like I said, in the first of the clip, he says we should teach the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have made mistakes as a nation, and we shouldn't try to hide that. We have, he literally says, we've had times in our past where we haven't lived up.
We had some oopsies in our past, and I don't know, maybe some racism might have happened, and that's so unfortunate because clearly, that's the exception and not the rule. Oh my God, this is so hard to listen to.
Our principles. So in the context of this bill, they're talking about teaching all of the things that you're talking about. I
don't think they care about the topic when they weasel their work backwards from the conclusions. Yeah.
So we're not going to obviously we're going to disagree on this. But I think if you watch the context of the first clip, it's crystal clear that he's saying that we need to teach all of these things, and I think it's a mischaracterization to say that he's not.
What is going on in their chat? I don't even understand. These must be some right-wing memes some IDW memes that I don't even get. What? I don't even know. I'm scared to read what I'm seeing in chat right now because it might be a dog whistle. Has anybody heard? Okay, I'm gonna say what I'm seeing here. Somebody in chat is saying communist skin suit. What does that mean? What does that chatter say? See what I mean? I'm I don't know what that, I'm afraid to even read that out, right? Because I'm afraid it's some kind of dog whistle or something.
What
does that mean?
His words, we have a disagreement on how to.
Their emotes are like a hammer and sickle with a Ghostbusters sign over it, right? We got weasels. We got some good emotes here.
Interpret his words. I also think the context in which in support of the anti-CRT legislation is without a doubt in my mind.
That sounds sus as
part of a campaign that is akin. It's not obviously the lost cause because this is he's not Dunning and that's not we're teaching history, but it is akin to the same type of project, which is to obscure racism.
Oh my God, this is depressing.
Racism that exists in our society.
The problem I have with this is that, and I sent you a link to the bill if you want to look at it. It's pretty short. That has the concepts that you're not supposed to teach.
It's going to launch.
It's a PDF file. But what I just want to say is that, it doesn't say, there's nothing in there that says you can't teach about.
Sam doesn't even identify. Yeah, no, Sam is, progressive, liberal, as far as I've ever heard him say. I mean, you get a sense that he's, like obviously the people that he hires, a lot of them are on the would be on like the socialist, leftist side of things. But yeah, he himself is
systemic injustices in society. There's nothing
never really identified that
What
way.
is CRT?
Well, hold on a second. The bill doesn't even say you can't teach CRT either. It says you can't teach these specific concepts. And when we were going through those specific concepts, you seem to be fine with all of them, with the exception of.
I'm sorry, this like really hurts. I'm just gonna take the sub goal off the screen because we're actually sliding backwards now. Like, yeah, like it's just I don't know. I hope this is the kind of content that people appreciate, but like I can't continue to look at that. Yeah, no, the sub goal doesn't exist. Just don't even think of it.
Racist concept. And so that's why it's hard for me to draw the kind of extreme conclusions you're drawing from it.
All right, let me I mean
Stop
depressing.
sending him links, Sitch. Jeez.
I was hoping we could get to 100 today.
Let's move,
but,
let's move on.
It's kind of sliding the other way.
Conversation if you just sent me this stuff in advance, but that's fine. But you want me to read this?
We did no, Sitch. Stop sending Sam links. Sam, we want you to focus. He's trying to make an argument here.
Well, here's
Adam said he was a lefty from way back. Wait,
it's just going to repeat itself.
No, he's like a Democrat from way back, Crystal. He's like a Democrat from back in. You know what I mean?
Because of this disconnect about what these CRT laws mean, essentially. Because the other part of the conversation
from the pre-civil rights era, I don't know.
I think that there's.
Okay, wait a second. Hold on. One part you didn't read. This is G of that law.
Why did you send him the links?
No teacher. Well, because he's trying to make an argument that I am misinforming people, and so it would be.
Well, I started to read
well,
that.
we have like 15. We have like 15 minutes. Now we're going to read every bill.
No teacher, administrator, or other employee of a school district, charter school, et cetera, shall require or make part of a course the following concepts. That any individual, and it doesn't even like it actually it's like just poor English here. Any individual,
yeah,
should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. And it's not clear that they're teaching that someone is obligated to feel this. The way this is written, frankly, and I say this as somebody who was raised by a contracts lawyer, is that should one feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex is not necessarily something that's controlled by the teacher.
Well, no, it is. It says
should.
Is it? It says should. That's what should means.
That any individual should feel.
Should, yeah.
Discomfort, but how do you should feel discomfort?
It's saying a teacher cannot teach that students should feel. Okay.
Say to me in a sentence, you should feel discomfort.
You just said it, Sam. No. You should feel discomfort. You should feel uncomfortable about this, Sam.
This is like a way in which someone who comes in and says,
I just did what you said.
Okay, I understand. Right. This is a way for a parent who doesn't like the idea of their child to be taught that.
Adam said he was a conservative when he debated Hassan a few years back.
White people attack.
I mean, like look at Dave Rubin, right? If you want to see an example of this, right? And this is, this is pertinent to my video essay. And I don't know, chat. Looking at the subs, I may just become a video essayist. I don't know if I'm going to continue. I don't know if I can continue on Twitch, honestly. But like Dave Rubin tried to rewrite his own history, right? Dave Rubin was always conservative. He was the most conservative member of TYT. His role on TYT was kind of as a conservative foil, but it doesn't work for the narrative that he wanted to portray, which was a narrative that like he was a liberal, but then he was red-pilled. He was awakened. He woke up to the fact that liberalism is really evil and like it's going off the rails. The liberals today, they're just too extreme. And so he had to be true to his own values, right? As a classical liberal, he might seem to be lining up more with conservatives, but trust me, it's because the liberals are unhinged, right? It's not Dave. He tried to rewrite his own history, right? And Sam caught him on that. And Sam busted him on that. And Sam did countless videos on Dave Rubin, hammering home who he really was, what game he was playing, and why that wasn't true, right? And that's what got Sam, kind of blacklisted out of, out of being able to appear on a lot of shows. You can see, you'll see in this video Tim Pool talking about that, kind of, gloating about getting, being part of that effort to deplatform Sam after all of his talk about free speech, right? But Dave Rubin's a good example of this kind of game that the IDW plays, right? It's not enough for them to be, to kind of be sort of crypto right wingers, right? They've also got to claim a political ideology that is far to the left of the one that they actually represent, thereby just hacking, I don't know what else to say, but hacking the Overton window. The Overton window is the the realm of acceptable discourse, right? So what normal people talk about. This is as far liberal as liberal. This is as far to the left as you can go. This is as far as to the right you can go. And when you claim to be over here on the left, but you're actually saying right wing stuff, you're just kind of pulling that center over to the right, which is, if you're a right winger, that's what you want to do. But of course, if you're in the IDW, you're not going to say that you're a right winger. You're going to say you're the last true liberal or whatever, right? It's the same game that they play.
Black people, and specifically to disempower them.
Do you think that teachers should be able to teach that because your kid is white, they should feel bad about, white?
Do you think under this law, a teacher could teach something that would make someone feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish? You think they can under this law?
Yeah.
I think that is not the way this is going to go.
So I sent you another one.
Oh my God.
I know.
But you know what I think? I think that the top of the hour, the middle of the hour, the bottom of the hour ad break, the ad break that comes at the 30-minute range is about to come in. So I'm going to say once again, for anybody who's listening out there, if you don't want to be subject to that, if you've been getting ads and you don't like it, right, there is a way to get out of that. One way is if you've got Amazon Prime, you can get out for free. You just hook that up with Twitch and you get a free Prime sub to give to the streamer of your choice. If that's me, you get out of the ads in the stream, right? If you if you want to clear it up and you don't have Amazon Prime, you can pay $5 on desktop or $6 on mobile in order to get out of that ad break by buying a sub for this channel. And you could possibly, although it's really not happening today, you might get a gift sub. It does happen occasionally, and that your best bet as far as doing that is going to be to be active in chat. Although I see a lot of you active in chat, and you don't seem to be getting gift subs. So maybe today's just not the day for you, or not the day for me, and you might just have to suck it up and go through that ad. But hopefully you can find a way to get out of it before it comes up. I wonder if just a little of Anna K's trying to stake out a position on the right to pull them to the left. I don't like her enough for that. I don't know. Anna's making money. That's what TYT is about these days.
What are you doing
wait,
here?
stop, Adams, please stop. Okay, I sent you the Oklahoma State School Board Association guideline, and they talk about this, and they literally say they talk about this. If you want to look on it, it's on page 4, right at the top. They talk about this specific part of the CRT bill, and they say teachers cannot teach that students should feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish because of their race. And then right under it, it says acceptable. Teaching about the facts of history, sociology, etc., even if students have certain...
This segment is called Can America Ever Be Colorblind? You can see what the goal is for these people, right? Not to do anything about racism, but to get really good at ignoring it.
Feelings about what they are learning. This is not within a teacher's control, nor is prohibited by this part of the statute. The prohibition is of teachers informing students that they should feel distress because of their race or sex. So to me, it's very clear that what this law is saying is that a teacher should not tell a student that because they're white, they should feel a certain way. It doesn't say that you can't teach about racism, you can't show your kid roots, and if they feel weird or bad about it, that means that it's illegal.
I think that in practice, this law will inhibit people from teaching these things. We've seen it time and time again. That's why we have seen it in the context, certainly within the context of Florida, and we see it like the way that it works when you're talking about library books being pulled. The law doesn't call for these library books to be pulled, but they do so because there is a strong incentive to err on the side of not bringing these things up. There's no teacher who's going to want to go into a classroom and
I'm seeing Groyper avatars in chat, right?
afoul of these laws.
These people don't worry though. They're not heavily right wing or anything.
They're going to stay way clear of it, and that is the
purpose. They have to.
That is the.
No, I'm sure the Groypers are just literally channel members, right? Literally paying members of the Adam and Sitch audience, right? Like they're literally getting paid while I'm working for free, right? And there's a Groyper in there paying them. There's a Groyper that finds value in their stream, right?
Purpose of these.
Oh my God!
Bills. I mean, it is the purpose of these bills, because
this is hard. I might have to cut this stream short. I'm seeing them getting paid for being a bastion of racism, and
the idea that there was
it just kind of hurts, honestly.
Teaching of stuff, where elementary school kids were being told in Oklahoma schools that they are should be feeling.
Don't worry, chat. I'm not going to pull an Anna Kasparian, but I might have to eliminate one of the streaming days. Honestly, I cannot continue to, work for free like this.
Guilty because of the.
It's gonna have to be Sunday.
That the white kids should be feeling.
No more Sunday stream.
For the Oklahoma massacres. It's just not there. It's the same way that when Oklahoma, or I don't know if it was Oklahoma or Nebraska, passing anti-Sharia laws. I mean. Back in the aughts.
Well, okay,
it's a similar dynamic.
There's two issues. The first is that even in Oklahoma and even in Florida, the standards say that they have to teach about slavery. They have to teach about all these other things by law.
Yeah, that's going to be the law. Like, I'm under 100. I've been under 100 for a while. It's going to be 3 streams a week from now on.
Law. So it's not like the teachers can avoid to talk about these subjects the way that you're afraid they will be. That's number one. And then number two,
Just
let him finish, Sam. Let him finish.
You bring up the books thing, and that to me, the books thing actually proves my point.
There we go. Ad break. I tried to warn.
And all this other stuff, and yet these CRT bills have been on the books for a year or 2 years in some states, and we haven't heard of any curriculum.
Just let people know that the ad break's coming up, and let them know how to get out of that, and
any evidence of parents coming in and complaining about the teachings of slavery or any of that effect. It hasn't happened to my knowledge.
I am not.
I mean, it would be a big story. I would assume you would have heard about it because you'd want to report about it. And say, "Ha, we got him! We got DeSantis!"
To be honest with you, I don't even remember the video you're talking about. I mean, so I can't say off the top of my head. We've been having a conversation for an hour about a video that I have no recollection about. So
yeah, but that to me is even that's part of the problem. I mean, because the other thing
I do too much content.
Well, no, the part of the problem is that when you're looking at these, as you said, we've been having an hour-long conversation about trying to interpret someone's words and interpret these laws, and that whether it can be interpreted in multiple ways and whether it's really that bad. And to me, when you label these things like establishing the neo-Confederacy or lost causism, or in another video you talked about how these are the incremental steps to fascism, when you use this like very strong language for these sorts of things, I mean, you're basically, in my mind, you're setting up people to view this like they need to use violent solutions to solve these kinds of problems.
I've never, ever suggested that people.
No, I know that you haven't directly suggested that, but I'm saying that by using this language, you're basically.
Wait a second. You're telling me that you've just spent an hour on one video that I did. I don't know how many months ago, or was it a year ago, or whatever?
Somebody just paid them €6 to say, "I want to have Sitch's children. If someone could send them." Oh God. This is depressing. I don't know how much more of this I can take, chat, honestly.
This was a couple weeks ago.
And this was a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me you just spent an hour taking issue with my interpretation of this guy advocating for this law with the idea that, what happened in the Oklahoma race massacre was a question of bad actions by individuals. And you're telling me that that is misinformation. But you're saying that because I say these are, and I've said this, I think, quite often, that I don't know if this is fascism as much as it is steps that are necessary, incremental steps towards fascism, that I'm inciting violence?
I said, so, and you even said this, I don't know when you upload your show versus when you do it. You had
Okay, this is going to get really interesting now.
Clips just like the day before yesterday, where you were talking about the anti-CRT laws in Florida being the incremental steps to fascism. And as you said, you said this several times. This is a repeated theme of your show. And I'm saying that this is,
and so you're interpreting that as a call to violence?
No, I'm not interpreting you as saying this is a call to violence. What I'm saying is that if you paint this picture, no, I'm saying if you paint this picture in your audience's mind that we're teetering on the edge of fascism, okay? If you were to tell me, Sitch, we're teetering on the edge of white supremacy and fascism, okay? I think it's reasonable that a reasonable person hearing that and believing that would say, I need to use violence to prevent my country from going to fascism.
So Sam's doing stochastic violence by pointing out the Christo-fascist movement within this country, which has been cooking for a long time, right? When you hear about dominionism, I think they got like call it like Seven Mountains dominionism or something like that, right? You know, like we're talking about Christo-fascism. When you talk about like Matt Walsh, right? There are so many ways in like look, Michael Knowles isn't even being like, you know, coy about it anymore. He's straight up saying it. Seven Mountain Mandate, yeah, like right. But like for Sam to point this out that this is going on, Sam's the one doing stochastic violence for wanting to teach about unconscious bias in schools, according to this shitty chat. This groiped up chat here that they've got, that is teaching racism in schools, right? Unconscious bias, like being aware of that phenomenon, that's racist. That's racist against white people. This is hard to deal with, right?
Kind of setting people up.
I don't know who you're hanging out with.
I literally do not get paid enough to deal with this.
But no, I don't see how would violence.
Wait, if I told you, if you believed that the country was teetering on fascism, you don't think it would be justified to use violence to prevent that?
I don't think it would be effective. I don't think one individual perpetrating
Well, I said justified,
violence,
not effective. I said justified.
Well, I wouldn't advocate it. No, and
I know. I'm saying, do you think it would be justified for if someone thinks, or actually, I should say justified? Do you think it'd be reasonable? Do you think it'd be reasonable that a reasonable person?
Sitch's kids, they have female fans. Sitch's avatar is literally, yeah. I mean, I guess so, right? That's
would try to use violence to stop the country from.
No, I don't think it'd be reasonable because I can't possibly.
Well, not only that, but he's getting paid €6.
Think of like how an individual's act of violence is going to stop fascism.
Yeah, but
how would that happen?
I know that you don't, but other people do.
Well, but you're saying reasonable, and you explain to me how that would happen. If it's a reasonable concept, it's easy for you to explain to me.
Yeah, because if someone says, "Okay, my country is literally teetering on fascism,"
and so
I'm trying to vote.
I'm trying to vote. What's your reasonable action that you're going to take?
I'm trying to explain to you. If someone says my country is teetering on fascism and white supremacy, and I'm going out there and I'm voting, and it's not making a difference, okay, I need to go out with my friends. We need to organize some kind of violent resistance underground movement, or we're going to get guns. We're going to go after people. We're going to start blowing up buildings. We're going to fight against the fascists. Who are you going to blow up
and go after?
They could go after the governor. They could go after the state legislatures. What do you mean? They start burning down these buildings. They could start kidnapping these people. I mean, there's literally, remember, there's a plot to kidnap the governor like not that long ago.
Let me just be clear. You think it's a reasonable action for people to fight fascism by assassinating a governor of the state of Oklahoma or something?
Do you think it would have been reasonable for people to assassinate Hitler before?
Ron DeSantis finally admits that Trump lost the 2020 election. Oh, wow.
Rose to power?
I don't know how you would anticipate that he was going to do that.
I don't know who he's targeting anymore.
You could read Mein Kampf in his prison cell. When he wrote in his prison cell about how if you're Jewish in Germany and Hitler's rising to power and you read Mein Kampf, you'd be like, holy shit, I got to get this guy to power.
In retrospect, I'm
not even in retrospect, preemptively.
Well, I obviously I don't think anybody even contemplated doing that before he rose to power. I mean,
I don't think
know
they
what your
expected
standard
him to rise to power. But I'm saying now, especially now with that
that's
context.
My point.
Yeah, but now it's even worse because now you have the context of Hitler. Now you have the context of fascism, which is why you're invoking fascism in this conversation.
Do you see what they're doing? They're accusing Sam of crying wolf. They're saying that like he's blowing the whistle on fascism where it doesn't exist. People are being completely, reasonable, and that this law that they're making in Oklahoma is actually banning racism from the classrooms, not enabling it. Right? Banning racism because like acknowledging that unconscious bias is a thing is in and of itself racist. Right? That's
when you talk about these topics.
They are sitting there with like super chats on their screen, getting paid a lot of money to just straight up gaslight the fuck out of people, right? Accuse Sam of being a stochastic terrorist. Meanwhile, I am sitting here doing this for completely free.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you think it's reasonable for someone to go out,
I hope you appreciate that, chat,
and that it's a reasonable concept for people to
I think
organize.
a reasonable person could come to that conclusion that it's reasonable to fight fascism with violence.
I disagree.
So you think all the Antifa people are crazy and unreasonable?
I don't think the Antifa...
Yo, like here's the thing though, right? Who's got bodies? Not Antifa, right? Where's the stochastic terrorism coming from? Not the left, right? Sam, like, I hate to say it, but you're being used to cut propaganda, okay? I know, like, look, I'm not, this isn't me getting mad at Sam or blaming Sam or, you know, anything like that, right? God, like,
Antifa people are going out and trying to assassinate anybody.
No, but they believe that they are justified in using violence to stop fascism. They definitely.
Well, I think
they believe that they are justified in using violence to stop fascism. That's why the only thing you can point to is Richard Spencer eating a knuckle sandwich, right?
literally go out and try and defend, you know, put themselves between people for the most part. My understanding of what Antifa does is they get in between fascists and the people that fascists are attacking. That's different than going out and assassinating political figures. There's never been anything.
Cornel West talks about this in Charlottesville. Like, Cornel West was in Charlottesville, was marching, and literally attributes anti-fascist to the fact that he didn't get hurt in that incident. And you know, if you want to talk about people that got hurt in Charlottesville, there is video of somebody getting hit with crowbars and stuff, like a black guy in a garage there being, you know, guess all YouTube will let me say is harmed, right? But yeah, grossly harmed, right? And you know, there were people that showed up to try to get in between the targets of these hate groups and the hate groups, right? That's what, you know, that's the anti-fascist action you tend to see in the United States, right?
Remotely like that, as far as I'm aware of.
Well, first of all, there was the Gavin Long situation where he literally was listening to Jimmy Dore and other people like that, you know, talk about how we live in this white supremacy society, and it definitely motivated him.
Yo, Jimmy Dore talk about how we live in a white supremacist society? Show me that fucking clip. I don't think this guy knows Jimmy Dore, right? Jimmy Dore talks to Boogaloo Boys. What are you talking about?
Pretty directly to go out and start assassinating
police officers. God.
So that did happen. This isn't like something that's never happened before, number one. And number two,
this hurts.
The reason why I'm surprised to hear you say this is
because I am in pain. I am in agony. I am in anguish. I am uncertain of the future of this stream.
To defend Jimmy Dore?
No, I don't want to defend Jimmy Dore. But I'm just saying that there's a track record for something like this happening. But number two, you literally,
well, I don't
the other
use
day,
the same rhetoric as Jimmy Dore does. I think people are.
Well, when you talk about incremental steps of fascism, I mean, you literally had the other day someone call into your show and say, Sam, I listen to your show a lot, and I feel like it's time for the left to start advocating for violence. That happened on your show like 2 days ago.
He's reacting to the news, and I specifically said, don't do that.
You said. Well, first of all, it's a very weird conversation because you said and let me bring up exactly what you said.
And we should be clear, I have open phone lines. So it's not somebody I invited.
Well, what did he think he was stepping into? What did he think that he was dealing with? Like, what did he think that he was doing here, right? Like, this is a trap. This is an ambush, right? They pick a clip from your show. They ask you to defend it, right? And now they're talking about a caller on an open phone line, right? Who called in concerned about the rising tide of fascism in this country. And Sam said, I don't think violence is the answer, right? No, this is too damn depressing.
No, I understand that. Okay. You said that the first thing you said was that you would never critique.
Look, I mean, chat, please understand that my frustration is not with any individual chatter, right? You know, right? I know that things are hard for people, and I never think that like I'm like looking at you or something. It's like it's you need to like, right? You know, it's just like an aggregate thing. Like I do need to get paid in order to keep doing this stream, but I don't want anybody to like, you know, take it upon them of like, oh, I'm a bad chatter because like I'm, you know, out of work and can't like afford a sub. That is never like my intention. From my experience, it's like the people that are you know, the most likely to feel guilty about that thing are the ones that really do need to take care of themselves first and foremost, right?
It's a frustration, desire, or compulsion.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a way that I have to adjust, you know, according to the, you know, the ebbs and flows of you know, of that kind of stuff. And you know, if I'm not there for as many Twitch streams, I'll be doing like more YouTube videos. So, you know,
that there needs to be some type of violent response, which That's not exactly what I would say.
What if they had someone call in and wait? What if they had someone call in and advocate violence?
But then after it, you did say that you practically didn't think violence would bring about change in a positive way. But you didn't really talk about like a moral condemnation of it. You didn't call the man crazy or unreasonable or anything of that nature. You just said, well, I don't think it'll work practically.
I agree. I don't think it would work practically. I don't think a reasonable person would.
But
assume that
morally, you don't have a problem with it?
No, I don't find it like my morality is just not something that I necessarily talk about. I don't have to justify my morality to you. You're talking about me advocating violence, and I'm not. You just quoted
I didn't say
me
you
saying,
advocated
don't
violence.
do it.
I never
And
said,
I don't think a reasonable person would.
I never said you advocate for violence. What I said is that your rhetoric can lead people down this path, and you have
I
someone who literally
disagree
called into
with
your
that.
show who's
lead
like,
people
listen,
down this
rhetoric.
path.
It's not
like,
Look, like you're talking about the specter of violence from the left in the face of eliminationist rhetoric from the right. In the face of legislation against trans people in Florida. You're going to tell me that but what we really need to worry about is what if some of these Antifa types out here, what if they get out and they get the wrong idea and they go out and they like, no, please fucking miss me with that shit. Miss me with that shit, right?
It's not my
I feel
rhetoric.
like we're getting there.
It's not my rhetoric. It is the reality of what we're dealing with in this country.
So when you talk about, well, wait a minute. You say the
Oh
reality.
my God.
It's
Yeah.
your perception of reality is
Thank
that
you,
we're going on this
Inosaurus.
path to white succemacy and
Let me
fascism.
preface
And you
by
talk
saying
about
this. I should have said this when I came on.
repeatedly.
I'm totally surprised by that too. Like I didn't see that coming. Thank you for the 500 biddies. Yeah, and like when you give bits or you give subs or whatever you do, it kind of like activates like a different like little thingy. That one I haven't seen in a while. I think that gets triggered when it's like 400 or more bits or something like that. You get that music and you get that old picture of me, which I'm realizing now I need to update. But thank you so much. That is that's. Like, it means a lot to me when in the face of like just like seeing Sitch and Adam getting these like super chats after super chats for lying, for creating this moral panic around the specter of leftist violence that just isn't fucking real in the face of a situation that's overwhelmingly dangerous to marginalized people, right?
And
When
someone
I
calls
talk
into your
about things,
show and
I'm
says,
doing it
this is
from my
how I
perspective.
feel about things.
One at a time, guys.
What were you gonna say?
One of you can talk. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
Sam,
I mean, yes. When I'm talking, just as I assume that you are talking about your perception, and I'm talking about my perception.
Right.
And yes, we disagree. You see what's going on. You don't see a problem. I would see what's going on over the course of the past 20 years, and a rise in attacks on marginal people. We just had a guy got.
And again, Sam, you're talking to an audience who this information that we all have seen, that we all know is hidden from these people. These people never see this stuff. When you say like, a hate crime, these people are thinking Jussie Smollett, okay? These people are thinking something that doesn't really happen. And then they're like, oh, but what about the professor with the bike lock? Remember that guy? Oh my God, you have to dig so deep. Like, what about... What about Big Red? Didn't she beat somebody up? Yeah, I remember her kicking the shit out of those MRAs on like, you know what I mean? They really have to dig to find some kind of like specter like to drop like, oh my God, Antifa is gonna come and they're gonna eat our babies or something. I don't know. Like this is like right. We all know what's really happening in this country. This audience doesn't know that stuff. They don't have any interest in hearing about this, and they're not being taught about this. They're not being told about this, right? This is not something that Sitch and Adam would ever fucking cover. So they're sitting out here thinking the real danger is a professor with a bike lock. They're going to come and clock you over the head in a protest or something, like, right?
To death in Brooklyn the other night because he was gay. I see this resurgence of homophobia. I see this resurgence of transphobia. I see this backlash against CRT, a thing that vast majority of people who,
Yeah, Kat, I'm surprised they didn't go back to the congressional baseball game.
want to get rid of it, can't even define, but they think that it's associated with, in some way.
Well, that was like literally like 2010 or something, wasn't
Black
it?
people being emancipated. I see
Just say they were bloodthirsty would be an understatement. Yep.
Pundits who are making a ton of cash off of attacking trans people and gay people, some of the most marginalized people in our society. And yes, I find it alarming.
LOL, transphobic resurgence. That's literally what the chat is saying. They're making a joke of shit that's really fucking happened. We're literally at the 8th step of trans genocide, okay? Right, and understand, like, because I haven't gone over this enough, we really probably should, like, if I had time, you know, if I wasn't having to cancel, like, you know, stream during the week, I'd go over the Telltale Owens discussion of you know what's going on you know in terms of trans genocide. But there you might remember this from the Loner Box debate, right? There's 10 steps to genocide, right? And number 8 is basically eliminationist language, like what you're hearing from Matt Walsh, like what you're hearing from Michael Knowles, right? That kind of stuff, like of stoking that violence, like what you hear from, you know, right-wing preachers, like, you know, talking about like trans people, right? Step 9 is the act, right? Step 9 is people like me no longer being alive, okay? And the reason there's 10 steps is because step 10 is denial. That after the shit happens, you just cover it all up and say it wasn't that bad and deny it and confuse people. And like, you know, there's, I mean, like, this is, we're in a really bad place and these fucking chuckleheads are laughing about it.
And I find it a step towards fascism. I think what DeSantis is doing with his like relentless talk of woke ideology, which is a sort of like this blanket term, which in my estimation, again, my perception, my opinion, if people think this is misinformation,
God, I gotta stop saying.
They have a blinkered notion.
They're trying to avoid saying the F word.
What misinformation is.
YouTube wants a happy streamer.
That is supposed to basically
I'm gonna be happy somehow
on racism, which is endemic in this country. And it has been endemic in this country for, I mean, arguably maybe endemic in this country, you know, since its founding. And at different times, it can be exacerbated in part because of, you know, of the economic situation, in part because of the demographic situation. And yeah, I think that we are taking incremental steps towards fascism. I do not think a reasonable person can hear me say that.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing in the world. You're right. Dylan Burns did essentially say what I asked him to say. You know, when I talked to him on stream, he just never apologized to me about it, right? He's come around, you know, in terms of the damage that a platform, even if it's just a debate platform that's not, you know, like I've never said that Dylan himself is like transphobic or that he has like ill intent towards trans people. I just said that he was seemingly unaware of the damage that can be done, of the harm that can be done to marginalized people when you bring on, you know, a bigot and you allow them to gish gallop over and over again. He basically admitted to Xander Hall NCC was right. He didn't say my name. He didn't apologize to me. I'm still waiting on that apology. Still waiting on the apology for the subsequent harassment that I lived with for 2 years, the lies that were told about me, the secret recordings of my mods, and all the other garbage that I went through because of that asshole. But yeah, no, like he does at least recognize that, you know, that harm can be done without the intention to do that harm, and I'm glad for him, right? You know, apology or not.
And think I need to go assassinate a governor. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's my opinion. It's my perception.
So, well, this is, I mean, I feel like you're kind of making my point, is that when you frame, you know, all these things in society is basically leading us down this
Wait,
path.
what's the innuendo short that was recently uploaded? Are you talking about the long goodbye, or are you talking about the you can't get snakes from chicken eggs or chickens from snake eggs? Or I know that innuendo just uploaded to
the destruction of our society, to living into.
Well, I didn't say the destruction of our society.
Well, destruction of democracy, I guess, because you're talking about we're going to live under a fascistic rule. I do think it would be reasonable.
My dude is gaslighting us
that
here.
A reasonable person would want to prevent us from
long
living
goodbye.
in a fascistic
Okay, yeah.
rule if they believe and interpret it the way that you're kind of laying it out. And
well, I think it's reasonable for people not to want the country to be fascist, but that doesn't mean it's reasonable for them to think that assassinating a governor is going to inhibit that.
It's interesting because not only did you have this guy, Colin, and literally...
No, I didn't have...
God, never play defense. That's what's going on right now, right? This is, if you're in this situation in a debate, particularly when your audience is exclusively right wing, this is not a victory, right? This is not.
The guy
okay, I'm sorry. A guy called into your show. Okay.
Yes.
Did a guy call into your show and he was saying that he thinks the left should start advocating for violence, and he was saying that he thought revolutions were only successful with violence. And after that guy said that, you read a message. You had, I don't know how you have some sort of like messages come in, and you read it out, and I don't think you knew what the guy meant, because the message said, hey caller, you should read Nelson Mandela's speech that he gave as a closing statement to his trial. Do you know what speech he's talking?
Famous anti-white racist Nelson Mandela. That is what he's saying, right?
Talking about?
Do
Tell us.
No, I'm not.
He's talking about like something that Nelson Mandela said before he went to prison, which was essentially like we've tried nonviolent action and it hasn't worked, and like we got no other recourse. That's what he's talking about. And he's basically, you know, like look, right wingers up until the end of apartheid were calling Nelson Mandela a dangerous communist. Now, if you've read the shock doctrine, you'd know that the ANC, if there's any issue with the ANC, it's that maybe they, you know, didn't go hard enough, and that when apartheid was wound down, they had like neoliberals. They had Chicago boys. They had like literal people from the Chicago School of Economics, like, you know, kind of advising them on how to run the post-apartheid economy, right? And that allowed racism and the hierarchy that apartheid had established to kind of, you know, institutionalize itself in the form of the economy, right? So
so the speech that the message that
I mean, this is gross. This is like, you know, like I said, like these guys are pretending like, oh, we're not even that far right wing, right? And yeah, you're not MAGA chuds. And Adam Friend had said something about MMT. You know, you can find examples of stuff that's like, you know, just not characteristic about of like super hardcore reactionaries, you know, on the right. But at the same time, you're getting this dude saying Nelson Mandela is a violent and dangerous anti-white racist communist, right? That's what Sitch is saying here.
Red was talking about is it's called the I'm prepared to die speech. And it's Nelson Mandela talking exactly about how his movement tried to use nonviolence to fight oppression and to get the political change they want, and it didn't work. So now him and his movement is completely morally justified to use violence to get what they want.
I don't think that we have come anywhere close as a society to exhausting civil disobedience. I don't even think we've come.
I'm glad. I'm very glad that you say that. But
yo, I bet he thinks Trump is responsible for J6.
People calling your show.
No, clearly it was Antifa and George Soros and the feds. Yes, the feds that did Jan 6. That's who's. Oh my God! I can't take this.
But I would not in any
cannot
way
take
look at
this.
Your comment section here on YouTube, pick one out, and hold you responsible for a comment section specifically based upon the idea that you're saying like, I disagree that the country is going fascist, therefore a reasonable person would go out and assassinate an Antifa person or something like that. I don't know what to tell you. You're you're really interested in claiming that despite the fact that I specifically said to this individual, I don't think that violence is the answer. And despite the fact that I have said very often on the show, and just the idea that, I mean, it's not just me saying this about, there are academics who believe that we are on the verge of fascism, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is not a wild-eyed fantastical idea.
Like if Sam is erring on any side, it's the sign of not being alarmist enough, rather than, you know, being like the purveyor of stochastic violence. That's what these guys are saying. You're stoking stochastic violence, Sam, by making up these ideas like that we're under some kind of a crypto, like some kind of Christo-fascist movement in this country to, you know, like literally Trump is talking about like rolling up democracy if he gets elected again. Where do you think we're at, right?
I've been doing this for 20 years.
You got DeSantis and Trump promising trans genocide. You got Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh saying the same thing,
and it's
right?
only, until recently, I think that like there is a
We are being gaslit so hard. And yes, Chad, I know gaslighting is actually an interpersonal phenomenon that doesn't really, you know, like there's a problem with using like clinical language to describe, you know, more societal phenomenon, right? But like I gotta say it in a short, succinct way that'll be understood, right? That we're having smoke blown up our asses by these guys.
Fascist element to this country, and I don't think that a reasonable person would interpret what I've just said on your show, that they should go out and assassinate people. I don't know what to tell you. You keep repeating the same point over and over again, but I'm not going to change my opinion.
Let me just say, I guess, two things to kind of to conclude this, though you can respond, obviously. The first is that, you know, if you were in that video that you uploaded, if you were kind of condemning violence as strongly to the caller and to your audience as you were right here, I would feel very different about this. I just felt you seemed, and people can watch for themselves, I don't know why, you seemed very uncomfortable to take a very strong stance against violence, which now you don't. You seem very, you know, adamant about it, which I appreciate.
Listen, when somebody calls into the show, we get people call into the show, okay? And when someone is expressing, like, when someone calls in like that, it is, you don't know who this person is. You don't know what their mental state is. You don't know what's going on there. And so I try and be sensitive to, you know, who's there and what's going to be the best way, particularly when someone's starting to express something like those views, the best way to try and sort of unwind them, okay? And there's not many shows that take unscreened phone calls, and there's not many shows that take unscreened IMs. I don't know if there are any.
But you're not a psychologist. You're not just talking to this guy. You're talking to
I know I'm not a
audience.
psychologist.
Right,
Exactly.
but that's what I mean. You're talking to an audience. And to me, the
I'm
audience,
not a, I'm not a psychologist.
more important.
And so I'm just doing, in that moment, what I think is the most responsible thing I can do to make sure that that person's bad ideas don't grow and fester. And so if you think
Sam,
that I didn't respond with the...
Getting put on the defensive on this particular question is immensely harmful, right? Conceding the points that you're conceding here is immensely harmful, right? Like, you're literally being used to cut fascist propaganda, and that fucking sucks. All right, I know you love to debate, but please don't walk into an ambush like this ever again. Oh my God, we got another ad break, and I didn't even warn you this time because I got so distracted by how bad this debate is going.
With the proper sort of like emotion or whatever it is, you know, to this call, I don't know what to tell you. Don't watch the show.
Okay. Well, I'm glad, you know, you said that you wouldn't pick out a comment from our comment section and you know, paint our show with it, which I appreciate because we do have, you know, crazy people.
Yeah, you got groiped up people in your fucking chat, and they're your donors. They're giving you money. You're making money off of freaking groipers.
Talk to everyone and comment on their show.
You got a bunch of Nick fans in your audience. You got a bunch of Fuentes fanboys in your audience. Yeah.
So, I mean, but do you think, you know, it's just interesting that you said that because, you know, that caused so much of a controversy for Emma when she did that to Tim Pool. I mean, she picked out that one guy, the shooter, and said that was indicative of Tim
one
Pool's
guy.
audience.
Yeah, she picked out that one. Look, I thought they were gonna say that Emma picked out, like, found a comment that was like, "Hey, this comment sounds kind of like right," you know? No, you're talking about a mass. You're talking about the dude with the fucking the Nazi tattoo. That's who we were talking about. It was a Tim Pool. So somebody that mentioned Tim Pool in his manifesto. God,
I think that
I
was
can't believe that's so disingenuous to hold Tim Pool responsible for that.
Right.
I mean, to be totally honest with you, I wasn't terribly familiar with that guy who had. I wasn't terribly familiar with that guy who had, you know,
wait, was that Ted Cruz? He pulled a Ted Cruz, right? That's like a Ted, was it Ted Cruz? I can't remember. Wait, yeah, it was Ted Cruz, right? I might be misremembering. There was some Republican candidate in 2016 who got like nervous and he drank some water, like, and it just looked really bad. And no,
like,
his screenshots of
no.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't terribly familiar.
Screenshots. You're acting like the contention was there was something like not great. It said in chat, and I can't believe it. Emma was so disingenuous as to blame Tim Pool for that. No, Tim Pool showed up in a manifesto. Come on, Tim Pool was cited in a freaking manifesto. Yeah, no.
Case. Do I think that's indicative?
Oh my God.
I think that, like, if you platform, generically speaking, okay, to be fair, because I don't know necessarily the details of that Tim Pool thing, but I think that if you platform, and I know that Tim in the past is at least platform people that I would consider that way. I think he has Jack Posobiec, co-hosting his shows or something. But if you platform these people without critiquing them in any way, I do think you deserve some responsibility.
I mean, look. Realistically speaking, like, Sam is dehydrated, or he's got like a tickle in his throat or something like that. That doesn't really mean anything, right? But the way that this audience reads this stuff, like I said, conservative audiences looking at a debate, they're reading it fully by the posture of the person in that. So this actually like is a huge dub for the Sitch and Adam crew, right? This is how this is going to be read. You're encouraged. Oh my God. Look, Sam, if you end up watching, I don't think you will, right? I'm a tiny random small streamer chick here, right? You're a great big political pundit. You're kind of a hero of mine from when I was a lot younger, right? So like I don't have any reason to think that you're gonna see this, but if you or anybody on the MR sees this, please understand this, that like I'm not like mad at Sam. I'm frustrated that this happened. I would hope that, this is like a wake-up call of what kind of trap some of these right-wingers, some of these IDW people are trying to pull you into, right? I love you. I love what you do. This is not a condemnation of you or anything. I'm just massively frustrated that they're using you to cut fasci propaganda like this. It sucks.
For the message that they're putting out, you're giving them credibility. I think. I mean, I think it's okay to have people you disagree with on, and I think it's okay to have like you can put on, I think, horrible people on your show, but I think that you as a host set some type of tone, like you're arguing, right? That I should have been harsher with this guy who called in saying that he is sort of fantasizing about violence or whatever it was specifically he said. But I do think you have a responsibility in that moment to signal to your audience that these ideas and this person who espouses these ideas are wrong. I mean, I think that's, I mean, today, we had Ryan Grimm on, who I quite like, both personally, and I think he's a great journalist. But he came on a week ago, and there was a couple of things that he had cited that it took a while for me to figure it out with the help of people on Twitter that were misstatements that I think, are really unhelpful. And I made a point of correcting that.
We watched this because I do think that there is a responsibility.
And so, yes, I think that, I mean, I don't know about the specifics of...
this has been like an hour and 15 minutes. NCC, though, adds like, time and a half to it. 3 hours I've spent so far.
Of Tim's case. But I do think that, yes, if you have... fascists or white supremacists on, or bad people in general on, however you define them, then I think, yeah, you have a responsibility to push back.
Bad people, like people that are willing to go to the mat to defend trans people. Yeah, really bad people like that caller.
On that, so that you are signaling to people, these are bad ideas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree completely. That's why I felt like you weren't pushing back strong enough against the caller. That was my whole point. I mean,
yes,
I agree. You have to push back against these things.
I mean, I think
this hurts.
Push back.
This hurts.
Against
this
him,
hurts so bad.
Right.
That you didn't. Feel
Well, we're approaching an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
Do I need to just reformat my entire content and become like a debate coach or something? Do I need to be like the book smarts of the left? Is that what I need to do? Right? Because I feel like this shit is so obvious to me, and yet, I see a lot of good people struggling with it, and I don't want to see that, right? I don't want to see debates being used to cut propaganda with good people like Sam Seder, right?
Have to go.
I do.
Okay.
I have one question before.
Before you ask that question, I want to thank you for coming on. You definitely lasted significantly longer than Jimmy Dore, who ran after the second question. But
well, like I say, I'm not. Jimmy and I have a bit of a disagreement on just about everything.
Well, that was my question. When is the Jimmy Dore debate? I saw you giving him a hard time on Twitter, Sam. What happened there?
I don't know if you know the history of Jimmy and I don't have too much time to go into it. But in 2016, when he was on the Young Turks, he did an episode of a show. I can't remember what they called it. It wasn't the Young Turks. It was some other show that he was doing with some other Young Turks people. Mm-hmm. And he said, there's nothing wrong with Tim,
I gotta stop reading
Peter
their
Thiel
chat
on the Supreme Court. And
I
the
gotta
Supreme
stop
Court
it.
does
Oh,
a
you can
joke,
see-
and the
you can
Democrats
see
will be able to
some of this.
filibuster, just like the
I don't know how
Republicans
much you
did.
can read of their chat,
And
but
I sent him an email the night before, and I said, I saw the clip, and I said, hey, I'm gonna
maybe some of you have been reading chat along with me.
talk about this clip because I think you're wrong on about 5 different things here. And if you want to come on and talk about it, let's come on. Because I wasn't friends with Jimmy, but it's a courtesy in my mind.
Sure.
Well, I mean, like back then, we're talking about 2016, like, right, Jimmy Dore's like dark path, onto into the world of patriotic socialists and MAGA communists and whoever the hell he's hanging out with these days, right? His becoming a extension of Infrared Hawes and Jackson Hinkle, like had not really happened yet.
He said, no, go to town. He's too busy. And I start to do it, and
In other words, this was a different Jimmy Dore than
into the show
we're dealing with now.
We have open lines, and he
literally like 7 years ago
called in, and so we began a debate where.
And this is when I was telling you that that Michael like texted Sam to tell him don't go for the throat, don't go for the jugular, ease up on him.
He clearly didn't know what a filibuster
break him.
was. He did not know what.
Why are they asking? Well, they said you lasted longer than Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore came on with I think 2 other people, and he ended up just getting frustrated and leaving partway in.
Why the Republicans were able not to give Merrick Garland a hearing and assume that the Democrats could do it. He was giving, in my mind, Democrats too much credit for being able to stop a potential Trump Supreme Court pick. I said, what happens if we get 3 Supreme Court nominees? And he said something to the effect of,
Sam, you made these chuds in the chat very, very happy. They're ecstatic. This is
what happens if the moon falls in Lake Michigan? I mean, the guy was wrong about everything. And I specifically remember Michael Brooks, who was far more generous.
So Jimmy Dore at the somebody in chat says Jimmy Dore is based Nazbol. Wow. Yeah, no, you don't have like far right people in your chat, just people that say based Nazbol, that's all. Yeah, Jimmy Dore was essentially arguing like, hey, what's the worst that could happen if Trump gets elected? Like, I mean, screw Hillary Clinton, right. And Jimmy Dore is like, what's the worst that could happen, right? And Sam's like 3 Supreme Court justices, and he's like, oh yeah, and maybe the moon could fall in Lake Michigan. No, literally we do have 3 Trump Supreme Court justices now. So Sam was kind of proved right in that argument, even though probably a lot at this point a lot of more people were sympathetic towards what Jimmy Dore was saying. This was before the Boogaloo Boy thing. This was before. Oh my God!
But now they're
freaking communists invading radicals. Thank you for invading my chat. Person whose name that I can't see because I didn't make the text a distinct enough color. GM Marmot, thank you for invading my chat today.
Yeah, towards people, IMing me saying,
yeah, even
go for
that's right. Even Jimmy Dore couldn't stand Adam and Sitch
on Jimmy, and I didn't. I mean, I tried to.
No, actually, I think that one of those 2 other people brought Jimmy on, right?
With certain constraints, not go after him too hard. Although what he was saying was complete gibberish, nonsense, ridiculousness, stupidity. And he said,
at the time, I think Jimmy Dore was still working on with TYT. He was known as the aggressive progressive. He had his own show, and he's posturing as like, I'm to the left of Jink. You kind of saw, what happened with that. We have a very different Jimmy Dore now.
And then he ghosted me after that.
Wow.
And so I do not think that Jimmy's interested in debating me. It's been 7 years, I think, since then. So.
Well, I still swear to Sitch that Jimmy's going to come back on the show, but Sitch doesn't seem to think so. So
I don't.
Sitch did go for the jugular.
Open a bottle of scotch. And see
Jimmy Dore's not a big debater.
if that attracts him.
for reasons.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Well,
I like it. It's
well,
a good
thanks.
idea. We can try that.
Well, thank you for coming on, Sam. You've been very generous with your time.
Yes.
All right, chat. Oh God, there it is again. Oh my God, and it's even worse now. Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to do. Like I said, I don't want any individual chatter to feel like responsibility for the sub goal being at a certain level. I do, need it to be at a certain level, and there are some very, real, like, pragmatic, levels at which, I just can't, continue at the level that I'm doing now, which is like 4 streams, sometimes more, during a week. That's not looking sustainable at the moment. However, like I said, the day that I would eliminate would be Sunday, okay? And if you notice, there's a Wednesday and a Friday stream between then and now. So I'm gonna be gone on Wednesday and Friday. If we can get that sub goal up over 100, I will keep the Sunday stream, right? If we can get that over 100, but I just gotta set a limit at some point. I gotta set a boundary, for my own time, and also, in terms of like what I need to be doing as far as whether I need to be prioritizing things that like grow the community, like making YouTube videos, or doing streams. And this is kind of telling me that need to grow the community at this point, because like I said, I know that you all have lives. I know that you all have things that you need to pay for and take care of, and I don't want any individual out there to feel like that they are, because they can't afford a sub, that like I'm mad at them or disappointed or anything like that. No, it's definitely not. It's a group effort here, and those who have disposable income, you generally would be the ones that would be able to do things like gift subs. I wouldn't expect anybody who's like kind of hurting for cash to take that upon themselves. So here's what we're gonna do. Yeah. If I can get the, as long as the subs are under 100, that's 3 streams a week, right? So now it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, no stream on Sunday. So that stream is gone for now. However, obviously, if we can get that sub point total to 100 by Friday, essentially, right? Then we can put that Sunday stream back on the schedule. So I love streaming. I love talking to chat. I enjoy it. When there's content like this, especially when it seems to need my touch, right? When it's like, I don't know, Sam, you should have brought me on to tag team these guys, right? There's 2 of them. Like, I would have come on with you. I would have come on with you, and I would have gone hard on these assholes. But yeah. The least I can do is review the debate and kind of say those things that maybe aren't coming to your mind or whatever. But yeah, we got 2 more streams this week. Wednesday and Friday. We'll try to put those 100 sub points back on the map. But if not, don't expect a Sunday stream. Just I'll catch you the next Monday. We'll go from there, right? So thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't hit that like button already, go ahead and do it. Like I said, that's one of the only ways that you can directly like help me out on YouTube, other than just watching, which you're already doing, and I appreciate greatly. And thank you Inosaurus for making sure that like I didn't do this stream for completely free. But yeah, it's depressing to see asshole dishonest weasels like Sitch and Adam just getting paid to lie, while I'm doing this as a labor of love. But I do love it, and I do care about all of you. And I care about like not seeing propaganda get cut using good people like Sam Seder. So hopefully, I'm sure Sam will learn from this, and I will see you all again on Wednesday. In the meantime, say hello to my friend Kai Pewter for me. And oh my god, Let's see if we can help Computer out. Oh my god. Wow. Things. Well, we're sending 12 viewers. At least. Yeah, I'll see you again on Wednesday. Much love, everybody, and